Bing Crosby has been on his summer holiday, but beginning October 3rd, Bing and his crew will return to this, their regular time. So join in the fun with Bing Crosby at this time next Wednesday, October 3rd. From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Philip Martin, Johnny.
Fine, what have you got for me?
Mr. Benny Waxman's insured with Columbia.
When did he die and what's wrong with the way he did it?
He's very much alive and his business isn't. He owns Delicatessen. We insure that, too. It's burned out.
When did it happen?
Last night. We don't know whether Waxman did it himself, but the fire department said it was started deliberately.
Police holding Waxman?
Not yet. No evidence. Better get down here and I'll give you everything we've got.
I'm yours after a shave and a shower.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Columbia All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the protection matter. Expense account item 1, 3256, train fare and incidentals between Hartford and New York City after I received from you the necessary information concerning Benny Waxman. I arrived in New York at 3:30 in the afternoon and made my way through a heavy rain to 1078 East 105th, where I found Benny Waxman in a small apartment. Lieutenant Parkinson of the 15th Precinct was there also.
Yeah, Mr. Waxman's in. What do you want him for?
Johnny Dollar, I represent Columbia All Risk.
Insurance?
On Waxman's store.
Who is it?
Guy named Dollar from the insurance company. Come on in, Dollar.
The insurance company?
Yeah, you know, the reason you started the fire.
I had nothing to do with it. I keep telling you.
Over and over he keeps telling me, and over I keep telling him he's a liar.
A liar I'm not.
My name's Johnny Dollar, Mr. Waxman.
How do you do?
We can't pin it on him yet. Some kind of a bomb.
I ain't got no store anymore.
Yeah, sure he ain't. Like the stuff they used in the war. Not a big explosion. Nobody heard an explosion. But when it went off, it burned good.
Incendiary?
Yeah. Don't know how he got it, but we'll trace it.
Incendiary. Of course you don't know how I got it. I didn't get it.
How much was the place insured?
$20,000.
You're not going to get it, Waxman.
Look, Lieutenant, I don't care no more. I don't care. Do you hear me?
You will. I'll make you care.
I didn't start it.
There was a man killed in that fire.
What?
I didn't start it. I didn't kill nobody. I wouldn't.
People lived over the store, 3 apartments. An old man didn't get out. Your company won't have to pay a red cent, Dollar, because I'm going to prove Waxman started it.
Why would I burn down my store? I make a good living.
Tell Mr. Dollar how much money you've got in the bank. You hear me, Waxman?
$600.
That's not much for a guy who makes a good living, is it, Mr. Dollar?
I told you a dozen times.
He told me he gave $5,000 to his daughter.
It's the truth.
You checked the daughter?
That's a little tough. We can't find her. Used to live here with her papa, but she's just disappeared, and Papa doesn't know where she went. Do you, Papa?
She went on a trip, Mr. Dollar.
A vacation.
Yeah, I gave her the $5,000 for a vacation.
And he doesn't have any idea where she...
I don't know where she went.
He just gave her $5,000 for a little vacation. It broke him, but his daughter needed a little vacation.
I don't care anymore. I tell you, I don't care. Mr. Dollar, tell your company I don't want the insurance money.
You don't get out that easy.
I don't want out for nothing.
Look, you're on a spot. You figured it was a cinch. So many guys like you, Waxman, figure it's a cinch and forget about guys like me. I want you for a fire and a killing, and I'm going to get you.
I'll say it forever. I did not do it. I'll say it till they take me to my grave.
That doesn't give you much time. Well, I've got to be going.
I'd like to look at that report, Lieutenant.
Yeah, sure. Come along.
No, I'll check with you later. I want to talk to Waxman.
Sure, 15th Precinct. I'll be around until they find out where he got that bomb.
Right.
You're loose till I get something, Waxman, but do me a favor, huh?
What is it?
Try and leave town. I'd love it. See you later.
Yeah.
Mr. Dollar, go back and tell your company to forget it. I don't want the insurance money.
If you didn't have anything to do with the fire, you're entitled to it.
I'm going to leave this town when I can. Open a business somewhere else. Another city if I'm lucky.
If you're not guilty, why not take the money?
Because I cannot prove I am innocent.
What are you afraid of?
What?
I said, what are you afraid of? It's pretty obvious you're afraid of something.
I'm not afraid. I'm nervous. Policemen, the fire, and everything.
That $5,000 for a vacation is pretty weak.
Oh, please, Mr. Dollar, I let your company out of all the claims. They don't have to pay me nothing. Now, please, don't ask me any more questions.
The cop's out to get you.
Look, the law I believe in. If they convict me of something I did not do, then perhaps it is in payment for something I did to break the law.
What?
I can't explain. Now, please, Mr. Dollar.
Okay. Look, Mr. Waxman.
Good day, Mr. Dollar.
I hadn't noticed. I left the building and went out on the street. The rain was coming down harder, so I turned up my collar and started to walk. I couldn't stop thinking about Benny Waxman and his crazy, mixed-up story. A guy who burns down his store with an incendiary bomb is smart enough to have a better story. The $5,000 he'd given his daughter for a vacation, that was wrong. Making himself look guilty by telling me to forget the claim, that was wrong. He was scared, not of Parkinson or me, but of something that was mixing up his reason. Maybe I was wrong, too, but I was going to find out. The 15th Precinct was on Madison. Lieutenant Parkinson was in his office.
Hello, Dollar. You look wet.
I walked.
I'll take off your coat.
Thanks.
Sit down.
Thank you.
Did you have a talk with Waxman?
Nothing I couldn't tell you in 5 seconds.
Yeah? What do you think?
I'm surprised.
And what?
I didn't come here to insult him.
You think he's innocent?
I think there's a lot more to it than just a fire and a killing.
Isn't there always?
I think he's scared stiff.
So do I.
A guy who starts a fire...
Has a better alibi. You want some coffee?
Yeah, sounds good.
That should be. My wife gave me the electric pot so I could have my coffee on duty. Says I drink too much of it, but she gave it to me anyway.
I'm not. I did suspect him. That was one of the things that kept gnawing at me all those years. But I never found out anything.
I hope you're telling me everything, Mrs. Taylor.
I am. That's the way it was being married to him. I was alone so much, Oh, I know I thought about things too much, but I couldn't help it.
Yeah. Who were some of his friends, Mrs. Taylor? I don't remember that he ever mentioned any to me.
We had a few friends here in the neighborhood. And there's the man who was his partner for a while, Henry Varner.
Never heard of him. Where is he?
He's a house detective at the Hotel Millard.
How close were they?
Well, they were good friends. They hunted and fished. Oh.
Have the police been here?
No, Do I have to talk to them?
I don't think it'd be wise to try not to. You want me to let him in?
No. No, I'll let him in.
Hello, Mrs. Taylor. Do you feel up to answering some questions now?
Yes. Yes, I'm all right.
Thanks. I'll try not to take any more of it.
Lieutenant Reese?
Got everything taken care of?
What does that mean?
Did you get her story rehearsed?
Climb off, Lieutenant. I don't play that way.
What's this man doing here, Mrs. Taylor?
Why, my husband was working for Mr. Dollar when he was killed, so he came to see me.
Has he been asking you questions?
Yes.
What kind?
Look, Lieutenant,
Never mind, Dollar. What kind of questions, Mrs. Taylor?
About Doug being killed.
Did he tell you how to answer police questions?
No. That never came up.
Dollar, how much information on this insurance case did Taylor have in his office?
No reason for him to have any. Why?
The office had been torn to pieces by the time we got to it this morning. All or part of the motive was there, and somebody came back after it. You'd better clear yourself of this mess, Dollar, or I'm going to see to it that you're put right out of business.
I had to wait until 7 that evening before I could get to Henry Varner, the hotel detective Mrs. Taylor had spoken of. He was the slight, dark type with a hairline mustache and too much aftershave powder. The kind of house dick that usually causes the feminine guests the kind of trouble they're paid to stop.
Yeah, I had a little deal cooked up this afternoon, the kind where you don't leave a phone number where you can be reached, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a doll. Hey, what's behind this Doug Taylor mess anyway? I haven't read the evening papers.
Hasn't broken yet. His wife told me you and Doug were good friends.
Oh, yeah. We used to be partners for a while. We used to get out of town once in a while.
Hunting and fishing?
Yeah, that was the pitch.
When did you see him last?
Let's get out of the lobby and go in the office, John. It seems to me the last time I saw Doug was around the middle of last week. He stopped by here on the way home.
Was he on a case?
I don't remember him saying. You know, it was one of those things. I asked him how it was going. He said the same old stuff. He get killed over one of his cases?
Looks like it. His office was broken into. Somebody after one of his reports or something, the police say.
Uh-huh. Seems to me he was awful fed up the last few nights we got together. A couple of times he mentioned there was going to be a change. He was going to go back to New York or to Florida or out west someplace.
With or without his wife?
Without, I think. She's a creep. You know, jealous and all that stuff. The poor guy had to sneak the money to spend when we got together.
What about the money for this change he mentioned?
I don't have any idea. Never followed it up because I thought he was just dreaming. Hey, who's paying you for this? Not his wife.
Nobody. I'm trying to clear myself with the police. They think I'm holding out information on them.
Oh, how come?
He was working with me when he was killed. What made you think his wife might have hired me?
I was wondering if she hired you before. Put a tail on.
Say, just for the four walls and me, do you think she'd be capable of killing him?
Oh, yeah. One of those fits of hers. I really think she's a little off. Sure. If she got wind he was really leaving, if she figured he had some dough hidden in the office, yeah.
That's what I meant.
Sure, it could all fit. Maybe he got something.
He owned a car, didn't he? Police say the body was driven to the freight yard and dumped.
Yeah, it was a sedan. You might have something.
Well, I'll go see. Thanks for the time, Varner. It was dark by the time I got across town again and back to the Taylor duplex. I happened to look up at their second-floor apartment, and I saw a light switch on behind a drawn shade in one of their rooms. If I hadn't done that, a number of things would not have taken place. Mrs. Taylor? Mrs. Taylor, it's Johnny Dollar. Come on, I know you're in there. Let me in.
All right.
Hey, what's this?
Come in here, I'll kill you.
Yeah, sure.
Don't get close to me. I'll move right across the room.
Where's Mrs. Taylor?
She's in the bedroom. Maybe she's dead. I don't know. I hit her. She wouldn't be quiet, and I hit her with a gun. And I'll kill you, too, if I have to. I don't care how many anymore.
Why'd you kill Taylor?
Because he was too filthy to stay alive, too dirty, rotten to live. Don't you try to follow me, or I'll kill you, too, and I mean it. Nothing means anything anymore.
What are you fighting? What'd you come after?
Don't you try to follow me.
Hey, come here. Hey, come here. I had no intention of stepping out into the hall right then. He was young and obviously out of his head from fear. I hoped the shots he fired would alert the plainclothesman that I thought was still sticking to me, but he wasn't there. If I tried to lose him, it probably would have taken a week. But as I learned later, a split-second set of circumstances caused him to miss me when I left the hotel. And Douglas Taylor's killer simply disappeared into the night.
We will return you to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. 2 more great shows climb aboard your CBS radio bandwagon tomorrow night. Eve Arden as wisecracking our Miss Brooks returns to dear old Madison High. And the Edgar Bergen Charlie McCarthy show resumes its pot shots at your sense of humor. Listen for Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, and Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy back in business on most of these stations tomorrow night. Now, with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Mrs. Taylor had been knocked unconscious, but hadn't been seriously harmed. I phoned Lieutenant Reese, argued some tenants into going back to their dinners, and then did what I could for her.
He was crazy. Crazy. He said he'd kill me.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right now.
When I screamed, he came at me. I knew he was going to kill me. I knew it. I knew that was the last thing I'd ever see. His face is a gun coming.
Take it easy, Miss Taylor. Take it easy. He's gone, and you're all right now.
Oh, I can't explain. I knew I was dying, and I tried to hang on, and I couldn't.
Here. Can you drink some more of this?
Yes. I'll try. You saw him, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw him.
Who was he?
Hadn't you ever seen him before?
No, never. He was crazy. He told me that he killed Doug, and he killed me, too.
What else did he say?
I couldn't understand. Something about how Doug had ruined 2 lives, and I wished he could kill him again. Then I screamed, and he gave it.
What he said mean anything to you?
No. I didn't understand any of it. I wanted to ask him why he came here.
Yeah, he was looking for something.
Huh?
Tore the place to pieces. Must be the same one that broke into Doug's office.
I don't understand any of it. Oh, I'm so scared. He was going to kill me.
Please, Mrs. Smith. Come on. Try to relax. Get hold of yourself. Police are on their way, and they'll want to talk to you. I'll wait for them in the living room.
You didn't think he was going to wait in the hall all night, did you? Why didn't you go out after him?
One of your men has been tailing me since morning. I thought he'd be outside and that the 2 shots would wake him up. Where was he?
How hard did you make yourself to follow?
I didn't give him any trouble. A Boy Scout could have stayed on me.
Then Parker is probably following the boy. How long did you have to study him?
Less than a minute, but I think I can give you a fair description.
Let's have it.
Well, he's about 5'9", between 17 and 20 years old, I'd say. Fair complexion, small features, brown wavy hair, brown eyes, very white teeth, and what looked like a mole above his right eyebrow.
No other marks?
Not that I saw. He's wearing a ring on his left hand. I couldn't see it too well, but it could have been a class ring.
How about clothes?
Well, no hat, white shirt without tie. It was open. Flannel slacks, brown tweed jacket, and brown wingtip shoes. His clothes were well cut, looked expensive.
What kind of gun?
Revolver, Smith & Wesson, .38 with a black rubber hand grip.
You're sure of all this?
Of course I'm sure. You think I'm making it up?
I can't forget you're holding out a $500,000 motive on me.
You'll feel better if you do. You talked to witnesses that heard the shots, didn't you?
You could have fired them.
With what? I'm not carrying a gun.
You could have got rid of one.
Go look for it, Lieutenant. Then you can stop making an ass of yourself.
Watch it, Dollar.
You're doing a pretty good job of needling me. If you'll stop riding your badge for a little while, we can get together and make some sense.
Go ahead.
Doesn't it seem obvious that Taylor had something on this kid? Something big enough to be his motive? There must be a record of it. The kid missed it at the office, or he wouldn't have come here. And I'm sure he didn't take anything out of the apartment. So it must be around someplace.
If you're all through, go sit down someplace.
What's the matter with it?
It's nothing, that's all. We've gone through every file that was in Taylor's office, and we went through this apartment. There's nothing hot enough for a killing, nothing.
Then why did the kid show up here?
I'll work on that when I'm convinced he did. None of the witnesses saw him, you know. Nobody did. Nobody but you and your friend, the widow, in there.
It turned out to be a long night. Looking back at it now, I can see how the lieutenant felt justified in pushing around somebody who wouldn't cooperate. But that night it was tough, including a paraffin test that he called inconclusive because I could have been wearing a glove when I fired the 2 shots and then gotten rid of it. But finally, at about 1:15 in the morning, he got tired of it and he let me go home. I didn't leave my apartment the next day except to go out after the extra editions that called me the private investigator whose position and importance in regard to the case is not clear at the moment. At 9 that night, I was at home again and the door buzzer sounded. I thought it was a delivery boy bringing some liquor I'd ordered. Hey, you're fast.
Go on. Get back inside.
What do you want here?
Go on back up or I'll kill you. You know I will, don't you?
You look crazy enough to. But it'd be stupid. You'd never get out of this apartment building. What's the matter with you anyway? What do you want?
You were in with Douglas Taylor, weren't you?
What do you mean?
He told us about you.
When did he tell you?
That he brought somebody else in for protection. He said we'd never find out who it was. But I did find out, didn't I?
You're pretty mixed up about something, aren't you?
Oh, don't lie to me. If you'd only stopped when he told us you were going to, none of this would have happened. But you didn't. He kept coming back. We told him to have to stop some way. We couldn't pay anymore. We got nothing left.
Now, wait a minute.
Now, you wait. Now, he had a file on me, and I gotta have it. And if you don't give it to me, I'll kill you. We've gotta have it.
I haven't got it.
That's what he said, and it didn't do any good. I killed him anyway. It won't do you any good to lie now.
I'm not lying.
Yes, you are. It won't do you any good. Don't you know that?
You're way wrong. Now, listen to me.
No, I won't.
You told me that you killed Taylor because he lied to you, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And I believe you. I believe that you'd kill anybody who you thought was lying to you.
And I will.
I know you would. Now, listen. Since I know that if I had a choice of telling you the truth and saving my life or lying when I knew you'd kill me, wouldn't I tell you the truth?
Well...
Huh? If I had your file or whatever it is, wouldn't I give it to you to save my life?
All right, then give it to me.
I don't have it. I don't have anything of yours. I don't know who you are. I don't know your name. All I know is that you're wrong. You're mixed up, confused. You think I'm someone I'm not.
Oh, Taylor told me about you.
What did he say to make you so sure that he meant me?
You came to his apartment. You were the only one, and you were in the paper.
If I was mixed up in anything with Taylor, I wouldn't have come to the apartment. I would have stayed as far away as I could. Don't you see how wrong you are? You've got everything wrong.
But you knew him.
A lot of people knew him. I hired him once in a while, that's all. I don't know what you're talking about. You can believe that.
Well, and I gotta go.
Where? You don't know where to go, do you?
Oh, I shouldn't have come. If I'd been able to think, I wouldn't have come. But I don't think anymore. I just do things. My life's all winding up, and it goes faster and faster, and I can't stop it.
And, Douglas Taylor did all this to you?
No, not all of it. Part of it I did myself.
I don't know anything about it or about you. I feel sorry for you. You're driving yourself crazy, aren't you?
I did what I had to do.
Now, why don't you sit down and...
Hey, what's that? Who's that? Don't answer it.
I won't. It's just a boy bringing some liquor inside the door.
You're lying. Police, they're coming in.
No, it isn't the police. He just put the liquor down against the door. See? Now he's gone.
I don't believe you.
Why would the police come here?
Because they're looking for me.
Not in my apartment. You can believe that. See? There's nobody there anymore. The police would be breaking in by now.
Yeah, it was a delivery boy.
Sure it was. You got nothing to be afraid of.
I don't think anymore.
You're a nervous wreck. You know why?
Yeah, I know.
Because you're fighting something you know you can never beat.
I've been doing that all right.
Don't you know you'd be 100 times better off if you gave yourself up for Taylor's killing?
No, I can't do that.
Why not?
I can't. I gotta get away.
You'll never get away from this.
Then I'll die.
Taylor was black. What did he have on you?
How did you know that?
There'll be a lot of it these days. You'll be as bad off as you think if you...
This isn't even important Go.
What is important like this, huh? A family?
What makes you think
Because it sticks out all over you. A father with a fur collar on his overcoat and a mother who belongs to every civic club in town.
All right, and a sister engaged to a lawyer. That's why I can't give myself up and have our name all over the papers. That's why I gotta find that file Taylor had and get rid of it and then get away. I've almost ruined the family now. Dad's been bled dry, keeping Taylor from turning my name in. And now they don't have to pay anymore.
What do they think about his being dead?
Well, they asked me, and I told them I didn't do it. I think they believe me. It's all right. Anyway, it's better now than it has been for the last 2 years.
That long?
Yeah, 2 years. It started when Dad got a feeling about what I was doing. He hired Taylor to find out, and when he finished his job, that's what he threw at us. Hey, wait a minute. Where you going now? Wait a minute.
I'm going to get a light, if that's okay. I live here, you know.
Oh, I gotta go. I don't know why I've talked like this.
You wanted someone to talk to. I'm not as sorry for you as I was, because I think you're playing it stupid.
Well, I don't care what you think. I did what I had to do, and I know what I gotta do now.
You ought to give yourself up, and you know it. Now, I'm through talking sense. If you want to blow it all up your way, go ahead.
I know what I have to do.
There's nothing you can do.
Now, look. I want you to come down to the ground floor with me. All right, we'll use the stairway. And You know that I'll kill you if I have to.
I've gathered that, yes. Well, anytime you want to leave. There were enough people on the sidewalk to stop him, but I didn't start anything because I knew that he would open up with his .38 without thinking about who might get hit. He had the fear-crazed look in his eyes again as he left me just outside the entrance and started across the street. I realized what was going to happen before he did. Either he had been spotted and followed, or my building had been staked out. It didn't make any difference. When the police officers saw us together, it was all they needed.
Hey, you! Stay where you are! What do you want? We're police. We want to talk to you. What about? When you're ready. Hold it! Hold it! All right, Parker! Marlin! Stop him!
The family turned out to be the Bardettes, the father a judge, and so on. The son got at least one wish. He didn't live to stand trial for murder. But as far as protecting his family, he'd done nothing. The whole story rocked Hartford for weeks following. Expense account item 2, miscellaneous, $180. Expense account total, $181.20. Remarks? For a number of reasons, I'm sorry I had to drop the arson case for this interlude, but somehow a $500,000 loss, which I couldn't have prevented anyway, doesn't seem as important as the destruction of an entire family. And I couldn't prevent that either. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien will soon be seen starring in the Paramount picture Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Ray Hartman, Joseph Kearns, Edgar Barrier, Jeanette Nolan, and Hy Averback. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting, inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Uncle Sam gave 36 million pounds of U.S. farm surplus eggs and milk to save the Yugoslavs, but somebody had to pay the freight. CARE undertook to raise it from the American people, and at $5.35 per 300-pound package, the people gave. 3 million Yugoslav mothers and children have already received the CARE eggs and milk, but with a month to go before winter closes down the program, 1 million remain to be reached. You can reach 100 with only $5.35. Mail it to your local CARE office, or to CARE Los Angeles, or CARE New York. The Vaughn Monroe Show is back from vacation. Vaughn, the Moon Maids, the Moon Men, Ziggy Talent, and their singing guest stars will again be heard every Saturday beginning tonight. In fact, on most of these same CBS radio stations, Vaughn returns to action, takes place immediately following station identification. And remember, the Frankie Lane Show is your date with slick syncopation every Sunday afternoon on the CBS Radio Network.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as
Johnny Dollar.
This is Willis Dunhill, Mr. Dollar. I took Marvin Shields' place at the Plymouth Life Insurance Company.
Oh, yes. Yes, I read about that in the journal, Mr. Dunhill. I'm glad to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm told you've done a lot of work for the company.
Yes, I've handled a few things.
I have an assignment for you now, if you're available.
I have an appointment at 10, but I'll be free by noon, if that's all right. What's the case?
Well, a policyholder, Millard Ward, was stabbed to death. He was a bosun on a ship, and according to the cable, the crewman who killed him is being held. His name is Louis Radnick.
Sounds open and shut, Mr. Dunhill. Is there an insurance angle?
Possibly, yes. Something about Radnick and the dead man's wife. The ship is due in New Orleans tomorrow afternoon, and we'd like you to go down and look it over.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Plymouth Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Millard Ward Matter. Expense account item 1, $118.40 airfare and incidentals between Hartford and New Orleans. When I got there, the newspapers were bannering the expected arrival of what they called a death ship. And at 4 that afternoon, I was standing with 2 homicide men on the edge of a crowd of the curious when the squat freighter nosed into the Harmony Street wharf and was moored. A single crew gangway was put over the side, and the homicide men and I went aboard.
I'm Lieutenant Tracy, New Orleans Police. You one of the officers of the ship?
Yes, sir. The captain's in his quarters. I'm the chief mate, sir. Edward Donovan.
This is Sergeant Wright. This is Mr. Dollar from Ward's Insurance Company.
How are you?
Mr. Donovan.
I guess you know how it goes. Ward's body's in the isolation room in the hospital, and Louis Radnick's in the brig.
What about the knife that was used?
We, left it where it was.
In the body?
Yes, sir. You want to talk to Radnick?
I planned on waiting until we got him ashore. What about you, Dollar?
I guess it's not important now, but I would like to see where it happened.
Sure, it's just forward here in the forepeak.
Let's take a look, then. Will you stay by the gangway, right? Wagon should be here any time. Which way is it?
Up here, sir. Ship's plenty messy, but we put the men in their quarters until this was taken off our hands.
What does Radnick have to say about it, Mr. Donovan?
Nothing. He wouldn't open his peep after it happened, and hasn't since. Hasn't said a word.
Must have said something.
Nothing that wasn't out and out evasive. Happened during my watch, 4 to 8. Ward had some men up here on this deck.
This was last Saturday morning?
Yes, sir. They were chipping and red lead and some rust, and Ward took Radnick into the forepeak to get some more paint. Radnick came out alone and fell to again without saying anything. Then when somebody asked him, he said Ward must have stayed below. It's right down here.
How long was that after Radnick came out, do you know?
About 20 minutes is as close as we could come.
When was Ward found, then?
It wasn't for about 40 minutes. You know how men are. They figured they could take it easy as long as the bosun was out of sight. The ship's carpenter finally showed up and asked where he was. He found him and reported to me. You want to go down now?
Yeah, I think we better look at it.
Well, watch the ladder. It's pretty sheer. I'll go and get some lights on.
Go ahead, Lieutenant.
Yeah, thanks.
Still a little damp in here. We were taking some seas this morning. Now this is where it happened. He's lying across here.
Mm-hmm. Where was his head?
Well, his head was right here, his feet over there. He was lying on his side, and the knife was in his chest.
Did Radnick admit that the knife was here?
It wasn't his. We stored the twine and rope down here and kept the knife handy.
Well, Radnick admitted being here with Ward, didn't he?
He didn't say it, but we all knew he was. I tell you, he didn't say anything. When I asked him, he said, he's dead, isn't he? If you think I killed him, lock me up and leave me alone. I'll talk to the police when I get ashore.
The scene of the crime, the forepeak, a small compartment in the very forward part of the ship, seemed to hold little else in the way of information. As we left, the chief mate explained that there obviously had been bad blood between Radnick and the dead bosun, and one crewman had allegedly once heard them arguing about Ward's wife. With the permission of the lieutenant, while he and a coroner arranged for the removal of the body, I went to the airless cabin that served as a brig and met the accused man. He was 23 years old.
I've been saying that I talked to the police and nobody else. I still mean it, and that goes for you.
That's your privilege, Radnick, but when you talk to the police, you'll be talking to me, too. We're working together on this thing.
I don't get it.
I told you I was hired by Ward's insurance company. I want to find out if his policy had anything to do with your killing him.
Who told you I killed him?
Oh, it seems to be pretty widely accepted.
Did anybody see me do anything like that?
The men knew you hated each other.
How much does that mean?
There seems to have been something between you and Ward's wife.
That's a lie.
Why should anybody lie about it?
Who said that?
I don't know who it was. One of the men who heard you and Ward arguing about her.
I'll break his neck if I find out who. It's a lie.
For your sake, I hope it is. She's being pulled in for questioning this afternoon. You can see that if there was something between you, it'd be better if you told us.
There wasn't anything. I hardly know her. But for some crazy reason, Ward thought there was. I think it was because he was older, and those guys are always like that.
How well did you know her?
Well, just to talk to, have a few drinks together.
While he was out on the trip?
Yeah, while he was out.
I guess I should have figured that.
I don't care what you make it sound like. There wasn't anything wrong. He and I sailed with the company for quite a while, most of the time on the same ship. Early this summer, I got sick and missed a trip. That's when I met her.
Where?
In a bar. But there wasn't ever anything between us. Ward never would believe it, but it's true.
What made Ward think you did?
I don't know. I tried to find out who was talking to him, but he'd never say.
Somebody in the bar where you say you met her?
I don't know. He'd never say.
Where's the bar?
The International, mostly. Then there was the Oakland up on Common.
Good. Why'd you kill him, Radnick? Self-defense?
I didn't kill him. Everybody thinks I did. I didn't.
How did he die, then?
I don't know. When I left him, he was still alive. I brought a bucket of lead and went back on deck with the rest of the guys. I didn't hear that he was dead until everybody did.
That's your story.
It's no story. I don't have to make up a story. All I have to do is tell the truth, and that's it.
If it is, you'd be better off to lie and claim self-defense. Nobody's going to buy it the way it stands now. I heard him repeat his statement a few minutes later to a blank-faced Lieutenant Tracy, and when the prisoner had been started on his way to police headquarters, we did what checking we could through the crew. Everyone agreed that the two men openly hated each other. Radnick had always been given the dirty or dangerous work, and there had been muttered threats from both. It was a situation, they explained, that would naturally grow out of all proportion aboard a ship, and there was no escape from facing one another every day. We left the ship in Lieutenant Tracy's office and there met the widow, a plain girl, obviously a northerner in her early 20s, with too much arch penciled into her eyebrows, too much red on her mouth, but hardly enough emotion showing to fit the circumstances.
Sit down, Miss Ward.
Sure. Thanks.
Here's a chair.
Oh, thank you. I want to tell you something before we get any further. Louis Radnick didn't kill him.
Everything we've learned so far says just the opposite of that, Mrs. Ward.
I don't care. Louis didn't kill him.
What makes you so sure of that, Mrs. Ward?
Because he didn't have any reason to. I know my husband thought there was something going on between Louis and me. He knocked me around enough trying to get me to say so. But there wasn't nothing. We weren't any more than good friends.
We understood that you saw quite a bit of him while your husband was away.
I didn't see quite a bit of him at all. Once in a while, I'd go crazy in that crummy room where I live, and I'd leave. Go have a drink at the International or the Oakland. And a few times I ran into Louis and talked to him. It never went any further than that. We never even left together.
Don't you have any other friends?
Not many. I don't seem to get along with the people down here. But Louis is different.
You don't like New Orleans?
Not from the minute I got off the train from New York.
Louis Radnick's from up north, too, isn't he?
That's right. Chicago.
Why'd you stay here if you hated it that way?
Oh, I don't know. I was always going to leave just for a visit anyway. But I never did.
And I suppose you're figuring on leaving now, huh?
Yeah, I think I will.
With your husband dead, there's no more reason for you to stay in a town you hate, huh?
If you think you can make anything out of that, go ahead and try. You can't.
Well, you'll have to admit it looks pretty bad.
I don't care how it looks. You can't make anything out of it. You're a cop, so you got to push people around and pry. Well, I'll save you the trouble. I was sick and tired of being married to that fat slob. I hated him.
Why didn't you leave him?
It wouldn't have lasted much longer.
But this way, you might get some insurance money. Did you tell Louis Radnick how you felt?
We never talked about my husband. We talked about New York and things like that. Louis didn't kill him. He didn't have any reason to.
Okay, Miss Ward, unless Mr. Dollar has something more, you can go.
I can leave?
Sure, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, can I see Louis?
He's not seeing anybody but a lawyer right now. There'll be a coroner's inquest tomorrow morning. I think it'd be a good idea if you come to that.
Yeah? Where do I go and what time?
Sergeant outside will tell you. Thank you for coming down. Please accept our sympathy in your grief.
You're sweet. Both of you.
What do you suppose that pitch was for?
I thought maybe she was trying to clear herself of any part of it, if she and the boy did plan it. If he admits it, she can just keep on saying what she told her.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll check the two bars that she mentioned. She said they never left together. I'd like to know if that holds up, wouldn't you? I talked to the bartenders and quite a few of the patrons at the International in the Oakland, both that afternoon and again that evening. I ran into three people who remembered Mrs. Ward and Radnick being together, and one, a waiter, was quite definite in saying he had seen them leave separately, but never together. On one hand, it did nothing to clear Radnick, but on the other, it made it look like any premeditated motive was going to be hard to prove. Tenants at the Ward's rooming house didn't help either. None of them remembered ever seeing a man of Radnick's description in the building. That's the way it stood at 10 the next morning when the coroner's inquest got underway.
Mr. Herbert Massey, please.
Right here.
Will you stand up, please, Mr. Massey?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Massey, you're employed as a ship's carpenter on the same ship Millard Ward worked on?
Yes, sir. I've been on it 4 years now.
Is it true that you discovered his body?
Yes, sir.
Will you tell the jury in your own words how that happened?
Yes, sir. I knew that Ward had some men doing maintenance work on the foredeck. I wanted to borrow two to help me for a minute with some work I was doing. The men told me he was in the forepeak, so I went up.
Mr. Massey, who told you Ward was in the forepeak?
All of them, I think.
Did Louis Radnick say so?
I think he did. Well, anyhow, I remember somebody said he went in the forepeak with Radnick and must have fell asleep. It was Carl Nixon, I think.
All right, and then what happened?
But then I went up and found him. He was lying there with a knife sticking in him.
Was he moving?
No, sir. He was dead.
Then what did you do?
I felt for his pulse, and then I came back up on the deck and reported to the chief officer, Mr. Donovan.
Did you say anything to the men?
No, sir. I went down the other side of the deck and onto the bridge deck and found Mr. Donovan reported to him.
After the testimony of the ship's carpenter, a little more was heard from a few of the crewmen. None of it seemed to change the picture, but the reports from the autopsy surgeon, together with the one from the police laboratory, did. A, the knife had entered Ward's body at such an angle that the fatal wound could have been self-inflicted. B, there were no fingerprints on the handle of the murder weapon. C, Ward was wearing leather gloves when he died. And finally, the possibility of suicide was strengthened by the fact that there were bloodstains on the right glove. Everything was still indefinite, but I wondered how Radnick would react to the news. And after the inquest, I went to his cell to find out.
Still trying to save the insurance company some money?
I do when I can. I just came from the inquest, Radnick.
I understand I could have saved the taxpayers some money on that.
How come?
They don't have an inquest when there's a confession, do they?
What confession, Radnick?
I killed him. That's what everybody wants to hear, isn't it?
Wait a minute. What brought this?
I killed him because he was trying to kill me. And that's going to be my plea. I killed him in self-defense. What's the matter? Don't you like that story either?
We will return you to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Vaughn Monroe's back from vacation. Yes, on most of these same CBS radio stations, you can again make the Vaughn Monroe Show a singing, dancing date every Saturday night. Vaughn, the Moon Maids, the Moon Men, and Ziggy Talent, plus singing guests will be very truly yours just a little later this evening on CBS Radio. Don't miss them. And now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Crew said we hated each other. You can ask him how that crazy guy was riding me all the time and giving me all the dirt aboard.
Wait a minute, Radnick.
I was a guy on the outward side when we were painting davits. He was trying to kill me then, waiting for me to fall over the side.
Radnick.
Well, I didn't. So he got me in the forepeak and tried to brain me. So I stuck a knife in him. It was off his head, and I had to keep him from killing me.
Are you through?
That's all there was to it.
Why didn't you tell us this in the first place?
Because I didn't want to.
What made you change your mind?
I got sick of lying.
Have you hired a lawyer?
I got a right to, haven't I?
He counted all the evidence against you, figured in the fact that there wasn't an eyewitness, and decided to play it this way.
Why not? Everybody knows I killed him, don't they?
We want to be sure why.
I told you, self-defense.
What did he try to hit you with?
Took a swing at me with his fist. Then he picked up a can of paint.
Did he swing that at you?
Yeah, he started to. Then I backed up and got the knife. Then when he swung again, I figured there was only one way to stop him, and that's what I did.
Did you try to get away?
He was between me and the ladder.
Didn't you yell or anything?
I didn't have time to think of anything like that. He'd gone off his head.
Over you and his wife?
Over nothing except what was going through that crazy mind of his. There wasn't anything else, nothing between her and me. But he tried to kill me, so I had to kill him to save my life.
Who's your lawyer, Radney?
His name's Waterman.
Where'd you get him?
He does a lot of work for the union.
You should have stuck to business problems.
What do you mean by that?
I don't think you'll get to first base with the plea.
Well, that's what happened.
Sure. It's happened before when there weren't any witnesses. This time we're too close to a motive. I think a jury will fill in what we don't have.
I guess that's a chance you got to take.
I guess so. I'll see you later. That can of paint he was swinging. What did he do with it when you stabbed him?
He dropped it, I guess. I wasn't noticing things like that.
Okay, I just wondered. I wanted to be able to give Ward's wife all the details of your new story.
She had nothing to do with it. He was crazy, that's all.
He's not alone. Any sane man would have admitted a self-defense killing like you described right after it happened. And you shouldn't have wiped off the knife.
I didn't wipe him.
What was that?
I said all I'm going to say. Now leave me alone.
Sure. You better work on that story. And I don't think a new lawyer would hurt.
I don't care how full of holes it is, we've got to find more than we have now.
I know that.
If that boy's guilty, I want to hand in some evidence that says so and nothing else.
You'd better go back to the ship.
Yeah, I think so, too. Go over the scene of the killing again.
Seems to me we ought to be able to settle that can of paint he says Ward was swinging at him. One way or another, that would help.
Where's that ship's carpenter? You suppose he went back aboard?
I hope so. If he discovered the body, he ought to be able to fill in some details.
That's right. You know, what's his name, Massey?
Herbert Massey. Probably the same thing going through your mind. That the last person we think saw Ward alive isn't too far separated from the one that says he's the first person that saw him dead.
You aren't thinking that boy is innocent?
Not necessarily. How about you?
If he was, and with everything stacked up against him the way it is, that lawyer could have figured it was safer to have him take a self-defense plea.
I think you better go back to the ship, don't you? This must be it.
Yeah, come in.
Hello, Mr. Massey. You remember me, Lieutenant Tracy?
Oh, sure, from this morning at the inquest.
That's right. This is Mr. Dollar, insurance investigator.
Hello.
How are you, Mr. Massey?
We came back to talk to you, Mr. Massey, because we still don't have enough evidence to make a decent charge of murder against Radney.
Well, sure, I'll do anything I can to help the police. Sit down, why don't you?
Yeah, thank you.
You know, all I can say is what I saw. I found Ward, that's all.
Sure, we know that.
But you did know that they didn't get along too well, didn't you?
But I heard more about that after it happened than I heard before. I got my own work to do aboard. I don't work much with the crew. Afterwards, I heard them talking about it.
Mr. Massey, how clearly do you remember things the morning you found Ward dead?
I don't know what you mean.
Do you remember exactly what you saw and what you did?
Well, sure, I think so.
You sure he was dead?
Sure, I told you that. I felt for his pulse.
What made you do that?
Well, I don't know. I guess I just remembered that's the way to tell.
Where did you feel for it?
In his throat.
You remember that, huh?
Yeah, sure I do. When I saw him lying there, I called his name first, and then when I saw the knife, I leaned over him and saw his eyes open. Then I felt for his pulse.
How long did all this take, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Not very long. I came up on deck right away. What's so important about that?
We just want to get everything straight.
What can you remember about the forepeak, Mr. Massey? Was everything in order?
Everything in order? I don't quite know what you mean.
Well, do you remember anything unusual, anything out of place?
No, I didn't notice anything. Why do you ask me that?
It's important. Do you remember a can of paint rolling around on the deck?
Can of paint? What's a can of paint got to do with it?
Do you remember seeing one?
No. What would I be doing looking for a can of paint at a time like that?
When you saw he was dead, weren't you startled and didn't you look around? I would have.
No, all I thought was going to the old man or the mate and telling him. Say, why are you asking me this kind of question?
We told you we don't have enough evidence against Radnick, and we thought you could help us.
We've got to be sure he killed Ward.
Why, sure he did.
How do you know that?
Oh, everybody knows it, all the men.
But nobody saw him do it.
Everybody knows there was trouble between them, don't they?
Yeah.
Everybody knows they went after paint together and Ward didn't come out.
And then you went in, and when you come out, that's when it turned out that Ward was dead.
Yeah, sure, that's right.
And you didn't notice any signs of a struggle?
No, I didn't notice anything but Ward.
Well, I'll tell you the way it stands. Radnick said he didn't kill him.
Well, then he must be lying.
Well, that's what we thought, too. Everything that anybody said made it look like he was lying.
Why, sure he is.
But then he changed his story. Then he said Ward had tried to kill him and that he stabbed him in self-defense. He said Ward picked up a heavy can of paint, tried to brain him.
I don't know what happened.
Well, a fight like that would have been heard, and there would have been things knocked around. But you say you didn't notice anything, and the men say they didn't hear anything.
I don't know anything about that. I was on the afterdeck, so I didn't hear anything. And I didn't notice anything because I just didn't look around.
We don't think there was a fight. We think either Radnick just stuck him or that somebody else killed him.
Everybody knows Radnick did it.
It could be that everybody just thinks he did.
Everybody knew there's trouble between them. It was shaping up, so when you found Ward dead, naturally everybody thought Radnick did it.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody did.
You came out and told the mate you found Ward's body, and then everybody just naturally figured that Radnick had killed him.
That's right.
But what if he didn't, Massey?
I don't know what you mean.
If Radnick didn't kill him, who did?
We just want to get it straight. If Radnick didn't kill him, who did?
I don't know.
Who else was in the forepeak?
I was. That's what you mean, isn't it? I was in there. I found Ward in there. What you mean is you think if Radnick didn't kill him, I did. Isn't that right?
Somebody killed him.
I found him there. I tell you, he was dead when I found him. That's all I can say. It's all I know.
Okay, Massey. You weren't planning on going anyplace, were you?
Now, you can't arrest me. I didn't do anything.
We just don't want you to leave town. We want to talk to you again if we can't build anything better against Radnick.
The lieutenant put some men checking Massey's background for a motive in case we needed it, and it looked like we might. And then we went back to Lieutenant Tracy's office and looked at one another. Our circumstantial evidence was one thing, but we had nothing in the way of actual evidence. The information on Massey came in, and it was incomplete and worthless. More came in on the association between Radnick and Mrs. Ward. All it did was make us wonder whether they were innocent or smart. There was such a complete lack of anything to put our fingers on that we decided on some pressure tactics to eliminate at least some of the possibilities.
You lied to us, Rodney. We want to know why you did.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why'd you give us that stuff about killing Ward?
What stuff?
We think you were lying.
We don't think you killed him at all.
Are you crazy?
We think it looked so bad for you that you and that lawyer decided the best thing to do was try a self-defense plea.
What are you giving me?
What did you give us? You said you killed him.
Everybody else said I did.
That's what we've run into, too.
What do you want, then?
The true story.
Why did you give us that self-defense pitch?
Well, it was like you said. Everything was against me. We thought it was the best way to handle things.
Did you really kill him, or didn't you?
I'm not going to say any more until I talk to my lawyer.
Why not, Radnick? We said we don't think you killed him.
It's your chance. Now, why not talk?
Because I think you got something up your sleeve.
We have.
We've got more than you ever thought we'd have.
I don't care what you got. I told you what happened.
What do you think Ward's wife told us?
She had a good reason to double-cross you, Radnick. Without you, she doesn't have to split the insurance money.
I don't know what you're talking about.
She tried to make us think that she didn't have anything to do with it, and we let her. She tried to clear herself.
She thought she was saying something else, but what she really told us was that she was tired of her husband and wanted to get away from him. Then she told us you came along.
You want to see her signed statement?
What did she sign?
A paper that says she asked you not to do anything. But you said you were going to get rid of her husband.
You're lying.
I got it right here.
She's a dirty, rotten liar. If she signed anything like that, she's a dirty liar.
Yeah, but the state won't think so and is building a case against you.
Well, it's not true. I don't care anymore because I can see that even a lawyer was wrong. I don't have a chance and I'm sick of lying.
Tell us about it then.
It was her. After I met her, she asked me to do it. She said, kill him. She begged me. She said with the money we'd get, we could leave New Orleans. Honest, I'm tired of lying, and this is the real truth. She said we'd go away together. I let him ride me the whole trip. And then when Ward and I were in the forepeak, it was only 2 days from home. I knew I had to do something, and I did it.
He didn't attack you. You just stabbed me.
I don't know what happened to me. We were there, and I knew it was my last chance. I didn't know what I was doing. I just saw a chance, and I took the knife, and I stabbed him. I wish I hadn't.
You'd planned it, though, hadn't you?
I wish I hadn't. I wish I'd never met her. I wish I'd never come to this town and met her. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know. I don't know.
Expense account item 2, miscellaneous, $183.15. Item 3, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Expense account total, $419.95. Remarks? I don't think any are needed. It was a clear case of attempted insurance fraud. But if you can figure out where things like this start, what causes them, and insure against them, you'll save a lot more money than you've saved on this matter. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien will soon be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production, Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Sidney Miller, Barton Yarborough, Bill Conrad, Hy Everback, and Gene Bates. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
This is Dan Coverly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Jim Madison at Tri-State. How are you?
Well, Jim, I'm fine, but what's this I read about you people?
You mean the Tolhurst theft, I suppose?
Yeah. No progress yet?
As a matter of fact, that's why I'm phoning. We tried to get you right after the robbery, but you weren't in.
Well, I was on a case most of last week.
Well, we had a call this morning. It was a woman who said she knew something about the case. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
What did she say?
She wanted me to swear that we wouldn't call the police. And then she said she'd give us time to decide and call back about 3.
You want me to talk to her if she calls back?
Yes, I don't know anything about these things.
Are you willing to work without the police?
We stand to lose almost $50,000. We'll cut some corners if you will.
Edmund O'Brien in the transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Tri-State Insurance Group, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Tolhurst Theft Matter. I note here the accepted report of the robbery because, as will be seen, both the police and the press missed a number of details. The Tolhurst Fur Shop was entered at closing time Saturday evening by 3 disguised men who, at gunpoint, relieved Mr. Tolhurst of almost $50,000. Answering a radio alarm, the police spotted the getaway cars that left Hartford, and later, south of town, after a running gunfight with another squad car, it was abandoned by the 4 men who were seen to split up and who escaped into some wooded terrain. That's where it stood. Expense account item 1, $1.50 cab fare from my apartment to the Tri-State offices where your Mr. Madison was waiting for me a little before 3 p.m. The second call from his alleged informer came at 2 minutes after.
Yes? Yes, put her on. Hello? Well, I'm glad you did. I have someone here that I want you to talk to. No. He's not from the police. He's a representative of the company. Just a second. Here she is, darling.
Okay. Hello?
I don't like this. How do I know you're not from the police?
Well, I guess you can't be sure. All I can do is give you our word. And if you do want to talk to us, you'll have to take it.
The other man didn't say he was going to have somebody else.
He decided he'd rather do it this way. Now, listen for a second. To us, the recovery of the money is more important than having anybody arrested. If we can recover it more easily without going to the police, we're willing to do it. Doesn't that make sense?
Maybe. The police will have to come into it sometime. I know that. But also, I know I'm right. I've got my own reasons for calling like this, and I know I'm right. I'll take your word for it.
And we'll keep it. Now, what is it that you know?
I know where one of the men is hiding.
Oh? Which one?
He's in a hotel in Boston. He's not using his real name, and I can't tell you what it is.
You mean you know what it is and can't tell us?
I'm a friend of his. That's why I'm calling. He's got to give himself up and get clear of it. That's what you've got to make him do.
I will if I can. What name is he using and what's the hotel?
I know I'm right. I know it. But you can't tell him how you found out where he is. You can't say anything about this call.
That's a promise, too. I won't.
The name he's using is Taft. He's in the Standing Hotel.
The Standing. Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
How do I get in touch with you again?
You can't. There's nothing more I can do. Just be careful of him. He's awful desperate. Goodbye.
Huh? She's gone.
What do you make of it?
It's hard to tell. She says one of them is in a hotel in Boston and that I have to make him give himself up and be careful because he's desperate. She could be sincere. If she were just fingering this guy, it seems to me she would have called the police.
Then you think it's worth looking into?
Well, there's only one way to find out. Follow it up, see what's there. Expense account item 2, 3250, car rental and mileage between Hartford and Boston. On the way, I tried to figure ways and means of making an appointment with a hunted armed thug, if that's what he was going to turn out to be. I found the Standing Hotel on the fringe of the commercial and waterfront section, and a man named Walter Taft was registered there. I staked out his corridor and saw him leave his room at about 7:30 that evening. He came back an hour later. When he put his key into the lock, I was strolling toward him, and when he opened the door, I was behind him. Can you hold it a second?
What do you want?
I want to talk to you.
I don't know. You haven't got time.
I'm interested in a man who's registered here under a phony name, Taft.
That's my name. Is there anything wrong with it?
Well, if it's your real name, then I'm wrong. Have you got anything that says it is?
Well, I don't see how it's any of your business, but sure, go on in.
Thanks.
Now, who are you and what do you want?
I guess the automatic tells me what I came to find out.
Who are you?
I'm a private detective. The insurance company that stands to lose on the Tolhurst job hired me.
That's a lie. You'd have brought the cops if you were.
I've got a wallet in my hip pocket. There's a license.
Don't reach for it. Just turn around.
Sure. You're really jumpy, aren't you?
Here, catch. You don't expect me to swallow this, do you? You were hired by Alan Les. All right, so you found me. Now, what do you think you're going to do with me?
You having trouble with your friend?
I said, what do you think you're going to do with me?
It's going to help if you can convince yourself I'm telling the truth. We want to recover the money, and if you'll help us to do it, we'll try to see that you get a break.
That's a laugh. How would an insurance company find out where I was?
Sometimes they get a tip when the police don't. They can pay for information. The police can't.
Now, where would they get a tip from?
Somebody here in the hotel that figured something was wrong with you. There are fair descriptions out on you and your buddies for size and color and clothes. Somebody could have spotted you.
I can't buy it.
It happened, and the tip was right. You might do yourself a lot of good going to the police by yourself.
Either you're off your nut or you think I am. Come on, start backing up.
What for?
Because I'm leaving. Go on, get started.
If you were thinking straight, you'd talk it over. You're mixed up in a double cross, so you can't believe anything.
That's far enough. Who told you about a double cross?
You did. You said you thought I was hired by Alan Les. They were in the job with you, weren't they?
All right, turn around. Open the closet door. Turn around.
By the time I was on my feet again, he'd had at least 20 minutes start. After I cleaned up some in the crummy bathroom and stopped the bleeding, I looked the place over. There was nothing in it. He'd obviously checked in without anything but the clothes he'd been wearing and the automatic. That was all at the Standing Hotel. I drove back to Hartford and phoned Mr. Madison at home.
I'm sorry, Johnny. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm not complaining, just telling you what happened. I guess I asked for it, bulling in like that, but I couldn't think of another way to get to him alone and get to the point in a hurry.
Well, do you think you should have called the police?
I didn't for two reasons. They'd just be sore at us for not reporting the girl's call to them, and I hated to cross her at this point, in case she might come back to us with some more information.
Well, I guess we aren't any worse off than we were before she called, are we?
No, we made a little progress. We know there's trouble between the men. We're fairly sure they're all still in this part of the country, and we have a couple of first names. And if you want me to stay on the case, there's another angle I'd like to look into.
What's that, Johnny?
Well, from the beginning, it's bothered me that a furrier would have that much money in his store, no matter how fancy.
Well, he said he hadn't banked for 4 days.
It's still too much money. I suppose the police have covered it, but a thing like that could develop into a lead.
All right, let's try it.
Good. I'll go see Tolhurst in the morning. Maybe I can handle him without getting myself slugged.
Of course. I'm at your service.
Thanks, Mr. Tolhurst. I know you've answered a lot of questions already.
Yes, I have.
So I won't drag you through the details of the actual theft again.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
Now, the amount of money you lost, almost $50,000.
That question again. Why did I have that much in my shop? I have answered that question every possible way without smearing my own good name. The police have driven me mad.
I'd like to have the answers, too.
Very well.
Don't most of your customers purchase with checks, Mr. Tolhurst, or on credit?
No, they do not.
I'd think that they would.
Because you don't understand. The fur business, even more than the jewelry business, is concerned with making beautiful women more beautiful. Don't you agree?
Sure I do.
Well, I hope this doesn't come as a shock to you that there are many, many more wealthy husbands than there are beautiful wives. As opposed to women, that is. So, who would you expect these wealthy husbands to buy the furs for?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Cash purchases, too, huh?
Precisely. If wifey doesn't get the coat, she better not run across a check paying for one. The fur would fly, you might say.
But almost $50,000 in 1 week. That's a lot of intrigue.
One sable was worth $35,000. And if the name of the purchaser became known, it could literally endanger the national security. I really mean that. It would be discussed from the floor of the Senate. What can I do?
There's no record at all of these sales?
Barely enough to keep my books legal. I've rather specialized in this cash and carry trade. If I was strapped to the rack, I couldn't name these men. I'm helpless.
I think the insurance company might be able to fight your claim because of the stand you're taking. Had you thought of that?
Oh. No, I hadn't. Well, it makes no difference. I'm completely helpless. Unless a member of the board or somebody is an old customer of mine. And that is possible, you know.
I tried a few more approaches on Tolhurst without getting any place. I didn't fully believe him, but I did have to admit that business dealings like that were possible. I left the shop a little after 11 and went to my apartment to call in a report on this phase of the deadlock. My phone was ringing when I got there. Hello? Hello?
Got to help me.
What? I can't hear you. Who is it?
Yesterday.
You're the woman I talked to yesterday?
Yes. You got to help.
Well, what's the matter with you? What happened?
They were here.
Where are you? Where are you?
Stoddard.
Stoddard Street?
Yes.
What number?
5860.
5860. An apartment number?
Number 12.
All right, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Dollar, I'm coming in.
They went after Fred. You've got to go help him.
Now, wait a minute. Who are you talking about? The men called Al and Les?
I don't know them. First, they said I had the money and they beat me. One of them held my mouth so I couldn't scream, and the other one hit me.
Do you know where the money is?
No, they wouldn't believe me. Then they made me tell them where Fred is.
Fred is the man I saw last night at the Standing Hotel?
Yes. I can't keep quiet for him anymore. His name is Fred Terrell.
And he's holding out the money.
That's what they said. They said they'd kill him if they had to.
They look for him at the standing. They won't find him. He left there last night.
I know. He called. I tried to lie that he was still there, but they phoned and found out he wasn't. Then they started in again until I told them. He moved to an auto court, and that's where they're going.
Where is it?
I'm not sure. Between here and Boston. But I think it's in the state. It's called the Oak Springs Motel. I tried to warn him, but whoever answered hung up because they couldn't hear what I was saying. I couldn't talk.
What's your name?
Virginia Cowley.
Well, how do you fit into this? How much do you know about the robbery?
Nothing. I didn't know about it until afterwards. Fred's car was here. He came to get it and said everything had gone wrong and he was in bad trouble.
Yeah, now we all are. You should have told the police, and I should have. Promise I know. I'm going to call them now and hope I can fight my way clear of this mess. Where's the telephone?
We will return you to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Americans now have a double job to do. We must produce enough goods to supply our armed forces, and we must also see that civilian needs are met so that we can prevent further inflation. Better production means greater strength and greater insurance that our free American way will continue. Do your part. Now, with our star Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
In an attempt to help what was left of my position with the police, the first thing I told them about was the possibility of nailing the 300 men together, but that backfired, too. It took me 20 minutes to learn that the Oak Springs Motel was about 12 miles south of town, and it took me another 15 minutes to get there. 2 squad cars were in the driveway, and that looked all right. But when I got to the cottage where Lieutenant Crockett and the other officers were, things looked all wrong. The bodies of 2 men lay on the floor. Neither one was Fred Sorrell.
Who are you?
My name is Dollar, Lieutenant.
Oh, yeah.
Sorrell did this?
Seems to be some confusion about the name. The cottage was rented by an A.J. White.
Sorrell was hiding out under a couple of aliases.
Too bad we didn't have that information.
I didn't know who he was until a half hour ago when I called you.
They were already dead a half hour ago. Is there some reason you couldn't have found out 20 minutes before that?
Yeah, I didn't happen to be any place this Cowley woman could get a hold of me.
She's the one you just got around to turning in?
That's right. It's the first time I'd even seen her. First time I knew where she lived. First time I knew anything about her. I've done the same thing before, and it's worked out. This time it didn't.
What do you mean?
An anonymous call. She said she had information about the Tolhurst robbery that she couldn't give to you. She gave it to me in confidence, and I played it that way.
You still playing it that way?
No, I'll give you everything I've got, which still isn't much.
Let's go back to town, then, where we can get a real statement. Henderson, take over here, will you? I'm going back to the office.
Okay.
I didn't score very heavily with the lieutenant. He listened to my story point by point, but as he mentioned, actually the only useful thing I gave him was a slightly better description of Sorrell than he'd gotten from the manager of the auto court.
I don't know what to think about it, Dollar. I know you guys figure you can operate that way, and maybe it works sometime. Sure, people will talk to you when they won't talk to us, but you're always taking a chance that it'll get out of hand like this did.
This one was out of hand from the beginning.
And it's turned into murder now.
You aren't blaming me for that, are you?
No, but I want you to leave the case alone from here on. Stay away from the Cowley woman. Stay away from everything.
Does that mean I can go now?
Yeah. It might be a good idea if you went home and brushed up on a little police work.
You're really digging it in, aren't you, Lieutenant?
You got it coming. Go on now. I got to get back on this thing.
I knew my license was probably at stake, but Crockett's attitude, right or wrong, was more than I could take. Virginia Cowley had been put in the police hospital, suffering from internal injuries caused by the beating. I went back to her address, lied my way past a landlady and into the apartment. From a notebook on the telephone stand, I learned that Sorrell lived in Princeton. That was my next stop.
Fred Sorrell? Yeah, he still lives here. I haven't seen him for some time now. Seems to me he's out of town.
I came all the way up from New York just to see him. You suppose I could get into his place, leave a note or something?
Well, why don't you just go up and see if the other fellow's there? Name a Hacker.
Oh, a roommate?
Yeah, you could leave a note with him.
Oh, good. How do I get there?
Second floor, rear, number's 210.
Yeah. Who is it?
Friend of Sorrell's. I've got to see you.
Getting any sleep in this joint. What's the matter with that jerk, anyway?
Fred? When did you hear from him last?
A couple of days ago. In some kind of trouble.
He sure is.
Wanted to borrow some money from me, the lazy jerk. Told him to go take a jump or get a job. One or both.
He wanted to borrow money?
Yeah. Want me to mail him $50. What's the matter with him, anyway? You know?
Yeah. He's done it up pretty good. Have you heard about the Tolhurst robbery?
What are you handing me?
You know a couple of his friends called Al and Les somebody?
Hey, who are you, anyway?
Here.
Detective? You ain't telling me Fred's mixed up in nothing as big as the Tolhurst thing. He ain't got the brains.
He hasn't if he has to write you for $50 after he pulled it. What about Al and Les?
Yeah. Les Vernick and Al Hudson. I met them, but that's all. Left them out of town. They're in it, too, huh? Hey, you ain't pulling my leg, are you?
No. Did he write you from Boston by any chance? The Standing Hotel? Using the name Walter Taft?
That's right. I knew those guys were no good, and I told him so. He was always talking big money. I never thought he had the guts for anything like that.
Don't congratulate him. He built it up to murder today.
Oh, quit it.
It must have been Al and Les. You'll read about it, but for now, take my word for it. There was a double cross, or they figured there was. They were both shot, and Sorrell is still on the loose.
This is straight. He wouldn't come here, would he?
I don't know what he'd do. He must be half crazy by now. Can you think of any place else he might go?
He's got a girl he mooches off all the time.
Yeah, I know about her. He wouldn't go there, not now. He wanted a place to hide out. He was driving his car so he could travel for some distance, but not far. If he's thinking at all, he'll know he has to get rid of it.
I don't know. I'm not holding nothing back. A guy does anything like this, he doesn't deserve help from anybody.
By this time, he probably thinks he does.
You don't think he'd pull his old lady into the mess, do you?
He might. Where is she?
She's got a farm. I never saw it, but he talked about it once in a while. Little place she runs with an old guy helping her. It ain't far from here.
Do you know where it is?
Somewhere west. Hey, that's her picture. I think the name of the town is on it. Down here in the corner. I just remembered. I noticed it.
Torrington. Sure, I know where that is. About 25 miles. I'd like to look at some of the rest of his stuff, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. If this is as bad as you say it is, you can do anything you want. If you don't mind, I'm going to move out until this is cleared up. I don't want that crazy jerk to be coming back here while I'm around.
Nothing in Sorrell's things gave a hint as to where he'd be likely to go, but to stay on the move more than for any other reason, I decided to cover the farm. And to stay on the safe side, I stopped by my apartment to pick up a pocket gun.
You got business here?
Well, it's a sort of a social call. Mrs. Sorrell here?
Nope, she went to town. Or she went with her.
I was passing through. I know her son. I thought I'd stop by.
Oh, you're a policeman then.
What makes you say that?
We heard about Frederick. At least some of us did. We kept it from Mrs. Sorrell. That's why we sent him to town. We don't want that poor soul to learn about him until it's all finished. Did you think he'd come here?
How much do you know about it?
Somebody heard on the radio about the murders. Do you think he'd be hidden here?
Not exactly, but every possibility has to be covered.
He'd never come here. He wouldn't be turned out by his mother, but the rest of us would make short work of him. You're welcome to search the place if you choose to.
Has he been in touch with Mrs. Sorrell through this thing?
Nobody's been in touch with Mrs. Sorrell. She don't read her own mail or papers either, because she's blind. She don't listen to the radio or talk on the telephone because she's nearly deaf. Frederick is a rotten apple that hasn't been allowed back here for 3 years.
And she doesn't know about him?
Not for almost that whole time. Oh, yeah. She thinks he's a big success in the hardware business. And we've talked about it already. We think he's going to start a business in Australia. And his mother will think he's there until she dies. And you ain't going to tell her any different.
I don't see why I should.
Yeah. Want to search the place?
No, I don't want to, but as long as I'm here. Sorrell wasn't there, and by the time I left, I was made to feel like a criminal myself for looking the place over. By the time I got back to Hartford, the extras were out saying, widespread search fails to uncover killer. And something that had been bothering me came to mind again. Why, with a $50,000 haul, hadn't Sorrell gotten out of New England? A few more questions fell into line, too. How could an amateur like Sorrell escape a full-fledged police search? And why would he even think of a double cross on his first job? And finally, why, after running out of Boston, would he have come back to an auto court 12 miles south of Hartford? I covered the final point and learned that the Oak Springs Motel was within a few miles of the point where he and the other two men had abandoned their car and taken off on foot.
I thought I told you to stay away from this case.
You can't take away my right to make a living, Lieutenant. I found his car. Isn't that worth anything?
How do I know what it's worth?
It's something you haven't done with all your roadblocks. I'm 5 minutes away from his car, and I think he'll come back to it as soon as it starts to get dark. Can't you take a chance on it and have a few men out there?
All my men are busy. I'll see what I can do.
It's less than an hour till dark. I hope you make it. I'd come back to the auto court and then found the approximate spot where Sorrell and his friends had left their car. I'd found a pair of ruts winding through the trees, and where they'd stopped, I'd found his car. When I got back to it after talking with Lieutenant Crockett, I put my car under as much cover as I could find and waited. I was still there alone when the sun started to set. And then I heard him before I saw him.
You. What are you doing here?
Don't try with a gun, Sorrell. I've got one, too, this time.
What are you doing here?
I've been almost every place else. Doesn't make any difference to you that I'm here. There's no place for you to go anyway. You've been safe here in the trees. But you couldn't get any place else.
I could make it if I wanted to.
No, you couldn't. You missed when you didn't make it before everybody knew who you were. Right after you pulled the job, yes, but not now. You must have realized that.
I can make it.
Not now. Why didn't you go any farther than Boston? Why did you come back to Hartford?
I had my reasons.
You still got them?
What do you mean?
You killed Les Vernick and Al Hudson and then came right back here to the trees. I don't think you double-crossed them. I don't think you even got the money beyond this grove.
You know where it is?
No, I don't, Sorrell. That's only what I think. And you had to kill them because all they could figure was that you double-crossed them.
You want to help me? You want to? It's here, all of it.
It's too late to help. You killed them.
But it's all here. $50,000. I came down the road, and then I turned that way. That's when they were shooting at us. I was carrying the money, but I was excited. Alan Les went that way, and I came this way. I'm sure it was here. Yeah, I remember that big tree. I went past it. I'm sure.
You could find $200,000, and it wouldn't do you any good.
Yes, it would. You could buy anything with money, and it's all here. I know it was here because I ran on this road, and then this is where the road ends. Then I went past that tree. If I could just remember how far I went. Because I put it down, and I covered it over with some leaves. If I just saw them, I'm sure I'd remember.
Sorrell.
I know where it is. Hey, what are you...
I want your gun, Sorrell.
Get away from me! Get away! Quit it! No! It's all here. It's all here, and I'm going to get it. Now get away from me! Get away, you!
All right,
Get away!
All right!
Expense account item 3, extra mileage, etc., $43.60. Expense account total, $77.60. Remarks? A police searching party finally found the satchel of missing money, so the company is not out. Lieutenant Crockett and I finally got together, so I'm not out. The girl is nothing. So it leaves Sorrell, who really lost his mind over money, and the furrier Tolhurst, who didn't lose anything, not even that universal customer, the wealthy American husband. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Parley Bear, Virginia Gregg, Stacey Harris, Bob Sweeney, Herb Butterfield, Clayton Post, and Howard McNear. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
This is Dan Coverly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
The faith of its people is a nation's greatest strength. You can show your faith in freedom, and you can help keep America free by investing regularly in United States defense bonds. Remember, peace is for the strong, security for those who earn it. Start now investing in peace and security by investing in defense bonds. Buy an extra bond now. Buy United States defense bonds. The direction is straight ahead, no turns on your dial, for the wonderful comedy of CBS Radio's two and only Amos and Andy. Enjoy Amos and Andy, the Kingfish, and the rest of those fabulous characters tomorrow night on most of these same CBS radio stations. Stay tuned now for the Vaughn Monroe Show, which follows immediately on most of these same stations. And remember, King Arthur Godfrey's Round Table holds court Sunday afternoon on the CBS Radio Network.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Inspector Trabert returning your call, sir.
Oh, yes, Inspector. Thanks very much. I wonder when I could talk with you about the Hannibal Murphy death.
Why, it's your pleasure, sir. Do I understand you've come all the way from the States?
Yes. The news broke yesterday, and his insurance company thought I'd better. The reports weren't quite clear on whether or not it was accidental.
Then you haven't heard.
Only that he somehow fell off a cliff.
Oh, then I hope you'll pardon my being a bit nonplussed at your timely arrival. Mr. Murphy's death was definitely not accidental. Examination this morning revealed a bullet wound in his head.
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Plymouth Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Hannibal Murphy matter. Expense account item 1, $264.80, airfare and incidentals between Hartford and Kingston, island of Jamaica. After checking into the Myrtle Bank Hotel and reporting by phone to the British Constabulary, I went over late that morning and met the officer in charge.
Well, Mr. Dollar, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Inspector Trabert.
Although news of the death of one of your countrymen is hardly the kind of invitation I should like to send you.
If it hadn't been Mr. Murphy, I probably would have been invited to a murder someplace else. It's a popular pastime. What do you know about the Murphys, Inspector? I understand he's survived by a widow.
Yeah, there's a brother also, Paul Murphy, and a stepdaughter, Felice.
Oh, I didn't know about them. You mean they're all here in Kingston?
Yes, the brother has lived here for the past 2 years, has a cottage just outside town. The deceased and his family were visiting him. Had been here for 2 months.
Anyone else?
2 servants, an old cook and a young man who has rather general duties.
Do you have any kind of a theory, Inspector?
Since the fact of the murder was proved only this morning, no. Except that it was murder, the position of the wound on the head rules out suicide.
Any suspicions, then?
No, none that I wish to voice at the moment. Perhaps you'd like to visit the scene of the crime, or rather the point from which the body fell into the sea.
Thanks, Inspector, I would. Like most British police officers, he was playing it close to the vest. But on the way, he did let me know that he considered the Murphys, including the surviving brother, to be people who had been spoiled by too much money, were completely selfish, and quite possibly could be hated by a number of people. After a drive of a few minutes, we left the car and crossed through a strip of shaded parkway to a bridle path that paralleled the cliff some 100 feet in height. At the bottom, breakers piled in against a jumble of coral and rocks.
Here we are. We wrote the section off in case we might learn something from the marks, though I doubt we will. There, you see, on the edge, the torn earth and the broken branches.
Yeah. His body was found below. Huh?
Yes, it was discovered by a young islander who was searching for shellfish at an early morning low tide.
You said the Murphy cottage wasn't far away. Can you see it from here?
No, it's beyond the trees there. The path turns inland before it reaches the grove.
Does this cliff run near their place?
Yes. I believe, sir, that you and I share a common bewilderment.
Well, if his killer met him here, why shoot him if he could have been pushed over the cliff and killed that way, huh?
Precisely. We should have had a devil of a time proving it was murder at all.
Unless the killer wasn't strong enough to get him over while he was alive. Like a woman.
A possibility that does present itself, doesn't it? Yes, if he'd been shot and fallen here, then dragged to the edge, there would have been signs, but there are none. No bloodstains, nothing.
Yeah.
So, unless he was shot somewhere else and carried here, we must visualize the victim and the killer standing side by side on the sheer edge of the precipice, gazing out to sea a moment before the shot was fired.
Can we go to the house now?
I had planned to wait until I had a more complete report from ballistics, but please feel free to pay them a visit if you wish to.
Thanks, Inspector. I should let them know I'm here.
Very good. Come along. I'll drop you by.
The theory that Murphy was shot someplace else had holes in it, too. If the idea was to dispose of the body, why dump it so close to his home? The mail servant answered my knock, told me Mrs. Murphy was resting, and left me on the veranda while he went to find out if she'd see me. A few seconds after he'd gone, I met another member of the household, the daughter. A plain girl with short hair, gangling figure, and troubled eyes.
Matt, wouldn't he let you in?
He thought I'd better wait out here.
What do you want?
I came to see Mrs. Murphy.
About what happened?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
My name is Felice. I'm her daughter. I can let you in.
Oh, thanks.
You're an American, aren't you?
That's right. My name is Dollar.
You've come here because of what happened to my stepfather. Why did you?
I was sent by his insurance company in the States.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. I suppose he left a lot. He always did everything so handsomely. It wasn't an accident, you know. He was murdered. Somebody shot him.
Yes, I know that.
I suppose that there'll be all sorts of trouble now. Police will come and ask all kinds of questions.
Well, things like this are never pleasant. Are you worried about answering questions?
Of course not. Why should I be?
It's just the way you mentioned it.
Well, I'm not. I'll tell them everything I know and everything I thought about him. I'm not ashamed.
Felice.
I had a right to hate him.
Felice, stop it. Stop talking that way.
It's true and you're not. Every awful thing that ever happened to me is his fault. He was filthy rotten.
Stop it. Go to your room.
All right, I'll go. But you won't be able to send me away when the police come. I'll tell them.
Get out of here.
Yes, Mother.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. She really doesn't mean what she says. I'm terribly sorry.
You don't have to be, Mrs. Murphy.
But an outburst like that to a perfect stranger, I don't know what you must think.
I think she's a pretty upset young woman.
But she has no right to be. She's been an extremely difficult child. I don't know what else to say to you. I'm terribly ashamed for her. Now, would you come into the drawing room?
Thank you.
Please, sit down. You are
are an insurance investigator, Mr. Dollar.
Yes, and if you feel up to it, I'd like to get as clear a picture as I can of what happened the night your husband was killed.
I imagine that I shall have to put up with it, shan't I?
Sooner or later, yes. It probably would have been easier if your husband's brother were here to take part of the responsibility.
Oh, he went to make arrangements for flying my husband home. I'm not sure when he'll be back, but I'll help all I can.
All right. First, Mrs. Murphy, do you have any idea who could have killed your husband?
Not the faintest idea, Mr. Dollar.
You'd been here in Kingston for 2 months. Is that right?
Yes.
Could your husband have made any enemies during that time? Did he mention anything like that?
No, he mentioned nothing. We've been about very little. We only met a few people, some of Paul's friends. But he couldn't have made any enemies.
Who was here the other night?
No one but Hannibal and Paul and Felice and I. And the servants, of course.
Did your husband leave the house?
Yes, of course he did. It's quite a strange question, Mr. Dollar, considering where he was found.
I'm sorry. Why did he leave?
Paul said he was going to take a walk. He was in the house when I went to my room.
What time was that?
A little past 10. Paul retired a short time later, and he remembered that Hannibal said he wasn't sleepy. Perhaps he would take a walk.
And I take it your daughter had gone to bed, too.
Yes.
Do you mind if I talk to her now?
Oh, I'd rather you didn't.
Why?
Do you suspect her?
I didn't say that. Do you?
Of course not. A mother would hardly suspect her own daughter.
Why don't you want me to talk to her?
Because she's a poor, unbalanced girl who's filled with warped hates and misunderstandings. She'll say dreadful things about Hannibal. And about me. Things that are absolutely not true.
She'll have to be questioned, Mrs. Murphy.
Of course, I realize that. Well, there's nothing more I can say. I'll show you to her room.
But Felice wasn't in her room. I found her waiting for me on the bridle trail along the cliff. She'd been crying.
I heard you say you were an investigator, and I wanted to talk to you again. I knew I couldn't in the house, so I waited here.
Oh, glad you did.
I don't know what's the matter with me. I shouldn't have said what I did. I meant it when I said it. No, I don't.
I don't think I know quite what you mean.
I'm awfully mixed up. The doctor tried to explain it to me. When my real father died, my mother was all I had. And when he came along, I thought he was stealing her from me. I thought I didn't have anything anymore.
How long ago was that?
It's been 3 years. I was 14 when they were. But he did take her away. They chucked me into an old school and went off on a trip. I know he didn't do it just to hurt me. But at night it would seem to me that he did. I tried to get over it, but I never could. That's why I'm glad he's dead.
It's not a very wise thing to say, Felice.
I can't help it.
Do you have anything else you wanted to tell me?
No. I wanted to explain why I acted the way I did in the house. I don't suppose you understand.
Part of it, I think I do. Quite a few children have to adjust themselves to step-parents these days. It's tough, and some do it better than others.
I haven't done it well at all. Now I won't have to try anymore. I am sorry for the way I acted. I want to help you every way I can.
How do you think you can help me?
I'm not sure yet. But when I am, I'll let you know.
All right, Felice. I'll be talking to you again. I didn't know then what this strange, mixed-up girl was driving at. I got the impression that she wanted to talk more than she had. But I was fairly sure the way to bring it out was to wait rather than press it too hard. I checked in with Inspector Traybert, and his reactions were about the same as mine. On the strength of them, he called Paul Murphy into his office that afternoon.
The last time I saw him was when I went to bed. We'd had a drink together, and he said he wasn't sleepy and thought he might take a walk.
Do you know how long after that he might have left the house?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I was dead tired. I went right to sleep.
Was he in the habit of taking walks at night?
Sometimes, yeah.
But you didn't hear a shot?
No, I didn't hear anything.
How much time passed, would you say, between the time you left him and the time you were asleep?
Oh, not more than 15 minutes, Inspector.
Then he could not have left the house before, say, 11:15.
Yes, that'll be about it.
And you're sure he didn't say anything about meeting anyone?
He simply said he might take a walk. I'm not quite sure that I understand the importance of these questions.
The importance, sir, is this. Your brother was killed by a .25 caliber pistol fired at quite close range. I'm afraid we must assume that if he did not meet anyone, somebody either accompanied him or followed him.
You mean you suspect someone in my house?
We're only stating the facts. Someone was with your brother. We've ruled out the possibility of a robbery motive since both you and the widow have stated that none of his personal effects are missing.
You can see how the thing narrows down, Mr. Murphy.
Yes, I can. I don't know what to say.
Do you mean that you suspect someone?
No, I don't.
If you do, Mr. Murphy, it would be to your advantage to come out with it.
I'm afraid the duty of making accusations is yours, not mine.
A commendable statement, sir, as long as you don't mean that you're withholding information.
I'm not. I have no information at all.
Very well, Mr. Murphy, you may go.
When Paul Murphy left, we both felt that he, too, was holding back, that it would be a long time before he offered any information. But we were only half right. He phoned the office a few minutes after he had reached home.
Yes? Have you called in your own doctor? Dr. Drummond. Yes, I know him. We'll send one immediately and come out ourselves. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Well, the stepdaughter attempted suicide.
How serious?
Mr. Murphy was quite beside himself, and it was hard to know.
What did she do?
Slashed her wrists, a method that is rarely successful. But the question is, why did she do it?
We will return you to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Later this evening, the gangbusters give a graphic illustration of what happens when the police hunt a criminal who is a perfectionist. When a gang leader leaves no stone unturned to commit the perfect crime, there's a rough manhunt ahead for the police. Here are the exciting developments when you tune in Gangbusters later this evening on most of these same CBS radio stations. Now, with our star Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar.
Inspector Trabert and I went right out to the Murphy residence, but were held back from Felice's room by both a private and an official physician. The latter was the last to leave her room.
Well, Doctor, how is she?
You can see her now. As you might expect, she's in a highly emotional state.
Yes. Oh, this is Mr. Dollar, Dr. Gurley.
How do you do, sir?
Dr. Gurley, she going to be all right?
Oh, yes, I think so. You didn't do a very good job of it. I think she needs a good psychiatrist. A very good one.
She's evidently needed one for a long time. She say anything to you?
No, nothing specific. Only that she hates everyone. Well, I wish you luck, gentlemen. I've got to run.
Thank you, Gurley.
Bye, Doctor.
Good day.
Well.
Yeah.
Miss Murphy, we've been told we could see you.
Don't call me Miss Murphy. That's not my name, and it never has been.
Hello, Felice.
Hello, Mr. Dollar. Who's he?
You remember me, Inspector Trabert. I spoke to you yesterday.
I hardly remember yesterday. I hardly remember anything I don't want to. I want to forget.
What do you want to forget?
Everything. My whole life. It's been a waste. Nothing's been right. I hate her.
Please, Miss...
I don't care. I'm going to tell the truth.
What is the truth?
They killed him. My mother and Paul. I saw it all happening.
You were a witness to the killing?
I saw what was happening here. I saw what was happening in England last summer. First, I was glad. I thought he'd go away and I'd never see him again.
Felice.
Then we came here, and I knew it. If it weren't him, it would be somebody else. I knew it would never stop.
Felice, hold it. Slow down.
I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific, young lady. Do you mean that the marriage between your mother and stepfather was not a happy one?
It started last summer in England. She was getting tired of him. I heard them fighting and calling one another names. They tried to hide it from me because they knew it would make me happy. But I heard them. She wanted to divorce him, and he wouldn't let her.
What happened the other night, Felice?
I knew what was happening here, too. I heard them arguing the other night after they sent me to my room. Then I heard Mother go to her room. Then they left the house.
Your stepfather and Paul left the house?
Did you see them leave?
Yes. And then I heard the shot.
What time did you hear it? Do you remember?
Yes, I remember. It was 11:15. I remember because I was lying in bed, awake. And when I heard it, I sat up and I turned on my lamp. And I looked at the clock. Then I turned the lamp off again and went to the window. And in a little while, I saw Paul come back alone.
Why haven't you told us this before, Felice?
I don't know. I was awfully mixed up. She's my mother. At first, I thought I should protect her. And I thought of everything she'd done to me. She never wanted me. She threw me away. She's never been a real mother. I've always hated her. That's why I'm telling you. Because I hate her and I want her to be punished for everything.
I shall expect you to repeat this in the form of a sworn statement, Miss Felice.
I will, but you've got to take me away from here now. I can't stay here, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what they'll do.
The girl was moved to the police hospital and later that day repeated her statement under oath. At about the time she was doing that, there was another development. Inspector Trabert received a call from the proprietor of a second-hand shop that specialized in fishing tackle and guns.
After you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Are you Mr. Innes?
I am.
Inspector Trabert.
Oh, I thought you were police when you came in.
This is Mr. Dollar, an American investigator.
How'd you do, sir?
I'm glad to meet you, Mr. Innes. We want to thank you for phoning about the gun.
Well, I thought it was my duty. I've been reading about the murder, and when this chap came in here to sell me a pistol what was the same caliber as the missing weapon, I said to myself, you up to the phone and tell the police.
Could we see the pistol, please?
I've got it right here behind the case. Here we are.
Wait a moment. Have you handled it much?
Handle it? Of course I've handled it. I had to look it over before I paid him for it.
If this is the murder weapon, I'd like to protect any fingerprints that might remain. Let me pick it up. A Webley, Mr. Dollar.
But it's been in England. Would you recognize the man who brought it in, Mr. Innes?
I think so. There's not much trade in guns here, you know. Fishing gear, mostly. I think this is the first gun I've bought in 6 months. Yes, I'd remember him.
Would you describe him, Mr. Innes?
I'll try. He was about my size, I'd say. A little heavier. He had what you'd call brown hair. He was tan.
Is he English or American?
He was English as I am.
Well, thank you, Mr. Innes. It's possible you may be called upon for identification.
Happy to oblige, Inspector. But what about the money? I paid £4 for that pistol.
In view of Felice's sworn statement, Inspector Trabert was forced to make an arrest. So for the last time, we returned to the Murphy residence.
And I shall have to remind you that anything you say may be held in evidence against you.
You mean that you're arresting us for Hannibal's murder?
There's nothing else I can do, sir. I have a statement given under oath to the effect that you and the deceased left this house together the night of the murder.
That's not true.
That the sound of a shot was heard and that you were then seen returning to this house alone.
That isn't true.
There's not one word of truth in it. I didn't leave the house with him.
Can you prove that, Mr. Murphy?
Why, Alice, you know I didn't leave, don't you?
Of course he didn't.
Can you prove it, Mrs. Murphy? I understood you to say you were in your room, that you went to sleep immediately and heard nothing.
My daughter made that statement, didn't she?
Under oath and before witnesses.
But she lied. I told you she would, Mr. Dollar. She'd do anything to hurt me. You've got to believe that.
Alice, wait. What did she say was my reason for killing my own brother?
Because of your love for his wife.
Oh, she's insane. How can you believe these things? You're men of intelligence.
We're men who are used to working with evidence. A sworn statement is admissible evidence unless it can be proved false. Neither one of you seem to be able to do that.
Paul!
I don't think we better say any more until we've legal counsel.
No, I won't let her do this to me. We can't, Paul. I think she killed him. She hated him. She's the only one in the house that had reason to kill him.
No good, Alice. What are you going to do with this, Inspector?
I shall have to take you to jail. I'm sorry.
Oh, you can't.
Would you give us a few minutes to get ready?
Of course.
Come on, Alice.
Oh, you can't.
Go get your things. Everything will be all right.
What do you think, Inspector?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm not sure, but I know my duty as a policeman. The strength of that statement and their innocence or guilt are up to the courts to decide.
Less formally, though, it's a pretty frightening thing to think of. If that girl, in her mental frame of mind, could suddenly decide that she was a witness, make a sworn statement, and bring all this down on two innocent people.
Yes, I know, but the fact remains that they have absolutely nothing to say in their own defense. I've got to arrest them.
The widow and Paul Murphy were taken in, and I couldn't get out of my mind the strength of the case against them as far as the Crown went. A strength built on the fact that there was no evidence and were no witnesses to refute Felice's statement. I suppose that as far as the insurance angle went, my job was done. But after I left Inspector Trabert, I went to the hospital to see the girl again.
Hello, Mr. Dollar.
How are you feeling?
I feel awfully lonely. They arrest Mother and Paul.
Yeah.
Then I'm all alone. She'll never want me back now, no matter what happens. But she never wanted me anyway. I'm glad I did it.
If you told the truth, you have nothing to worry about.
What do you mean? I've nothing to worry about.
I mean, if you told the truth, you did the right thing. But if you didn't, you've done one of the worst things anyone could do.
Of course I told the truth. You believe me, don't you?
That doesn't make any difference. The inspector did.
But you do, don't you? You don't think I was lying, do you?
I hope not.
You think I could make it all up? You think I could do a thing like that?
I hope not.
I couldn't. I know what you're thinking. I told you how I hated her and how I hated him. But I could never say the things I said if they weren't true. I could never do a thing like that.
How did you happen to see the two men leave the house together? You never really explained that.
I was looking out the window.
I thought you were in bed.
Not then.
You saw them leave, then went to bed, then you heard the shot, then you got up again and went back to the window?
Yes, that's right.
Was your light on when you saw them leave?
No.
But you turned it on when you heard the shot?
Yes.
Then you turned it off and got out of bed and went back to the window?
Yes.
And who did you see?
I told you, Paul.
You were sure it was Paul?
Yes, I was sure.
Why were you sure?
I saw him.
Why were you sure it was Paul? Why didn't you think it was your stepfather?
I knew it was Paul. Because I had a feeling that something was going to happen. Don't ask me any more questions.
You'd better get used to them. The defense attorney is going to be asking the same kind if this gets into the courts. Well, I won't bother you anymore, Felice. I guess you're tired.
You don't believe me, do you?
I told you. Doesn't make any difference. As I mentioned, the matter was out of my hands by that time, and I was sort of 50-50 on believing the girl. I made my plane reservations on my way back to the hotel, but when I asked for my key, I got instead a message to phone Inspector Trabert. When I did, he told me, A, that the .25 caliber Webley from the shop was the murder gun, and B, that some prints on it had checked to a known criminal who had confessed the shooting. He asked me if I wanted to come over.
It's an incredible turn of events. Raises perfect hob with the girl's statement. In any case, we thought to bill from it. Yet, on the other hand... Oh, here. I should like to have you meet Mr. Roy Church.
What are you doing back, Copper? You beat it out of me, so now you've got it.
You dropped quite a bombshell into this, Mr. Church.
Tell Mr. Dollar in your own words how you came to kill Mr. Murphy.
Why should I? You've told him, haven't you?
No, I doubted he would believe me.
I'd like to hear, Church.
His ruddy brother said he was going to pay me to do it.
Paul Murphy?
Yes. Promised me £500, he did. Paid me 100, and I waited 2 blinking weeks on that clip for his brother to take his walk. Then I got welshed by the dirty beggar. So I had to sell the pistol.
Tell him why, Mr. Church.
I was supposed to take this here Murphy's wallet to make it look like robbery. But he fell over the cliff when I shot him, and I couldn't reach him.
That'll be all, Mr. Church. Thank you very much.
Think nothing of it.
Well, Mr. Dollar?
Well, this means there isn't a word of truth in that signed statement, except that maybe she heard the shot. She didn't see the men leave the house or Paul back. She didn't know anything.
Yes, a rather spiteful statement, but fortunately true in content. They did have the man killed. I don't know what to do about that girl. What would you do?
Well, luckily, I can leave the whole mess in your hands, Inspector. But I wish you'd come up and work a nice, simple Hartford murder with me sometime. Do you good. Expense account item 2, same as item 1, transportation back to Hartford. Item 3, miscellaneous expenses, $204.80. Expense account total, $734.40. Remarks? I can't help wondering what would have happened if Felice's sworn statement had been entirely false and the widow and Paul entirely innocent. I wonder if they would have been hanged anyway. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and is written by Gil Dowd with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production, Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Eric Snowden, Virginia Gregg, Jeanette Nolan, Ben Wright, Charles Davis, and Dan O'Hurley. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
This is Dan Cubberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Lovers of fine music are already familiar with the strong, melodious voices of the Choraleers on CBS Radio. This is to remind our many Sunday night Choraleers listeners that this excellent choral group will be heard at a new, earlier time on most of these stations starting tomorrow. Stay tuned now for the Vaughn Monroe Show, which follows immediately on most of these same stations. And remember, those lovable rascals Amos and Andy are here every Sunday on the CBS Radio Network.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Philip Martin, Johnny, I've got a job for you.
Fine. What is it?
Mr. Carl Baskerville is insured with us.
I've heard the name.
Retired, wealthy.
That's the best way.
His brother is the beneficiary. Baskerville called us a little while ago and said he wanted the money to go to a charity in case of his death.
What made him change his mind?
He thinks his brother's out to kill him.
Oh, that's charming. What do you want me to do?
He's insured for $500,000, Johnny.
You just made me a bodyguard.
At least until we found out how true Baskerville's story is. We did some checking. 6 years ago, he sent his brother William to prison for absconding with company funds. William was released from state prison a week ago.
Oh, yeah. That's where I've heard the name. I remember the case.
Oh, it's a strange setup. Sends his brother to jail, names him as beneficiary. Wants it changed because he says his brother's going to kill him.
Cain and Abel really started something, didn't they?
Edmund O'Brien in a transcribed adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account. America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office, Columbia All Risk Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Baskerville matter. Expense account item 1, $38.87, train fare and incidentals between Hartford and New York, after receiving from you the necessary information concerning Mr. Carl Baskerville. Expense account item 2, $7.50, cab fare between Grand Central and Baskerville's home on Long Island. The house was set back from the road, hidden by tall trees, and surrounded by several acres of well-kept lawns and gardens. I walked up the long gravel path to the front door and knocked. lit a cigarette and waited. The afternoon sun was warm on the back of my neck, and the air smelled of wet grass and bright flowers.
Yes?
I turned around to see the biggest man since Goliath. He was close to 7 feet and must have weighed in at about 280. He was nice-looking and wearing a well-cut blue suit, probably made from the best part of a tent.
Can I do something for you?
Bend over. I'm getting a stiff neck. I'm Johnny Dollar. I'm here representing...
Oh, yes, Columbia All Risk. They called and said you were on your way. Come in. I'm Mr. Baskerville's personal secretary. Mr. Baskerville is expecting you.
The big man led the way through the big house, through the big French doors that opened on the big garden. Carl Baskerville was sitting in a chair feeding the birds. He was reaching his late 50s with the sour look of a man that didn't want to. As he tossed the breadcrumbs out on the gravel walk, a big diamond on his little finger flashed in the sun.
Mr. Baskerville.
Oh, Collins. Who's that with you?
The man from the insurance company.
Pull up a chair and sit down, young man.
Thanks.
What's your name?
Dollar, Johnny Dollar, Mr. Baskerville.
Yes, your company called me, eh? I'm just feeding the little birds. Yeah, Birdy. Birdy! I've been doing it for some time now.
Swell.
What are you standing around for, Collins? I want to talk to Mr. Dollar in private.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes. If you need me, I'll be in the study.
I won't need you.
Yes.
How tall is he?
6 feet 9 inches. He's been with me for some time. I've been retired for 5 years, Mr. Dollar. I always wanted to spend my afternoons in the garden feeding the birds. I used to get up at 6 and go to work and have breakfast and look out of that window right over there. See? I used to see the little birds. I always said that someday I'd spend my afternoons out here feeding the little fellow.
I'm glad you made it.
All right.
Mr. Baskerville, I was sent here.
I know why you were sent. Sit down. Mr. Dollar, I'm 57. I spent most of my life making money, making a success of myself. Success in terms of what you consider success.
That's an interesting statement.
How is it? Why do you say that?
How do you know what I consider the norm of success?
Isn't money important to you?
Sure, it has to be.
How important?
Very, but not all important.
Oh, yes. Well, what else is important to you, Mr. Dollar?
A lot of things.
Don't be evasive. Tell me something.
A philosophy.
Oh, philosophy. I see. What kind of a philosophy?
Not taking people for granted.
Oh, I see. Here, you feed the birds for a while. Go on. Makes you feel real good.
Sure. Here, Birdy. Birdy.
Oh, that's fine.
Get a load of that one. He thinks he's a pheasant.
Yes, he's a greedy one. He always does that.
They're a lot like people, aren't they?
I suppose you know about my brother, Mr. Dollar?
William Baskerville. Worked for you 6 years ago. Supposedly took some company funds.
Definitely took some. $100,000.
Sent to state prison for 10 years. Was paroled last week after serving 6. You're insured with Columbia All Risk for $500,000, and your brother is the beneficiary.
That is correct.
Now you want to change.
That is again correct.
Want to tell me some more about your brother?
No, your company's worried. Is that it?
$500,000 worth.
I suppose you consider it strange I'd send my brother to prison, then make him my beneficiary.
I guess strange is a good word.
I don't particularly care if you believe this or not, but I hated to prosecute my brother. But he was guilty, and it became more than just a family matter. There were stockholders to be considered, and his guilt was discovered before I could do anything. You're not feeding those birds.
I'm out of crumbs.
Oh, well, here. Take some right here. Now, feed that little fellow out there. He's the timid one. He doesn't get as much as the others. You know, you're right about them being like people. The timid ones never get enough and generally fall by the wayside.
You made your brother your beneficiary, and now you want to change it.
Yeah, well, only as a precaution. With my money out of the way, perhaps William will think twice before he attempts anything foolish. I'm having my will changed, too. You see, I originally left my entire estate to William.
What makes you think he might try?
This letter. This way you go.
Okay. I spent 5 years hating you, but I learned a trade. I used it drawing blueprints for your shroud.
Poor William always did go for the dramatic.
When'd you get this?
I got it yesterday. It's the first I've heard from William since he went to prison.
Well, we'll never get a Pulitzer Award.
Yeah, William always did go in for the dramatic. Since boyhood, he's envied my get up and go. We never got along. And it was even too much for my poor mother. She died very young.
Probably overworked from knitting straitjackets.
What's that? Don't be flippant, young man. That was uncalled for.
Yeah, I guess it was. And I have a strange habit of getting flippant when I get confused. I'm confused, Mr. Baskerville.
Yeah. Well, William is the last of the Baskervilles. Hothead, childish, weak, and insecure. But he's a Baskerville. If he kills me, he'll be caught. If he doesn't gain by my untimely death, he may reconsider. I still have hopes of a reconversion, so to speak.
The regeneration of a Baskerville.
If you will. Perhaps when he calms down and forgets his last 6 years, we'll talk. And then I plan on renaming him as my sole heir. Are you still confused, Mr. Dollar?
You haven't contacted him?
I told you didn't know where I was.
Somebody out looking for him?
Of course not. Why?
Because I think somebody should be. If you're going to remove the temptation, it might be a good idea to inform William. How's he going to know he's been momentarily disinherited?
Man?
Yes, Mr. Baskerville?
Well, I must admit...
If you don't want to call the police, I'd suggest a private detective.
Yes, but there's no telling how much time...
It's better than feeding the birds. Can you think of anyone who might know where your brother is?
Well, perhaps I can. There was a girl before William went to prison. I'm not even sure she's still in New York.
What's her name?
Carter. Virginia Carter. Lived someplace in the village. I only met her once, 6 years ago.
And hire yourself a good private detective in a hurry and tell him about this Virginia Carter. She might know where William is.
Yeah, all right.
In the meantime, I'd recommend that the change of beneficiary be hurried up.
Oh, I'm getting tired. I'm going to finish feeding my birds.
Yeah, sure.
Good day, Mr. Dollar.
Oh, here. I had a few crumbs left over.
Oh, well, thank you. Hey, Birdy. Birdy!
I left him sitting with his friends. He'd have one good deed to take along with him. I went back through the French doors and started back through the house. I got as far as the hallway. It's Baskerville. Oh, swell. He was sitting in the chair with a bullet hole just over his heart. His head was resting on his chest, and he still held the breadcrumbs in his hand. He seemed to be smiling like he knew he was going to be able to feed the birds for a long time.
Mr. Baskerville! Mr. Baskerville! Good Lord.
Where were you?
What?
Where were you?
In the library. I heard the shot. I saw William.
Where?
Over there at the far end of the garden. He had a gun. He turned and ran.
Let's call homicide.
Homicide.
Lieutenant, this is Johnny Dollar.
Well, hello. Haven't heard from you in a month.
I've got a killing for you.
Who?
I'm out at the Baskerville estate.
The Baskerville?
He used to be Carl Baskerville. He was shot a few minutes ago in his garden.
Oh, William did it. I saw William with a gun.
What?
Baskerville's secretary says he saw William Baskerville with a gun.
The brother? The one who just got out of state?
That's right. I'm here because Carl thought William was going to kill him. He showed me a letter.
Holy...
A letter?
Get out here. I think I just made the mistake of my career. I shoved Collins aside and ran back out in the garden. Baskerville was still smiling, and things looked about the same. I went through his coat pockets and found what I was looking for. Nothing. The threatening letter from William was gone. I went back in the library faster than I'd come out. I remembered what Baskerville had said about a girl named Carter. I grabbed a phone book on a wild hunch and started looking up the Carters in Greenwich. Only one Virginia in that part of town, so I said a quiet prayer to the gods that be, visioned my employer's reaction when they found out their investigator had been on hand when they lost a cool $500,000, and called a cab in the hopes that I might at least save half a face. I told Collins not to touch anything and to wait for Lieutenant Brenner's. Expense account item 3, $8.75 cab fare to Greenwich Village. It was a long shot, but it could be the same girl that had known Martin. I went up the stairs of an old brownstone and knocked on the door. When it finally opened, I got the quickest scalding in history. She was wearing something thin enough to make a silkworm hang himself.
Yes?
I bet you had a hard time finding something to wear in July.
I'm not cold-blooded.
What's on your mind?
I'd like to know about William Baskerville.
Oh, that one. I haven't seen him in years.
Maybe you've got a picture of him?
I've got lots of pictures. There might be one of William somewhere.
Well, let's look through the whole flock. I've got lots of time.
Before I let you in, you'd better tell me your name. I don't want you to steal anything from me.
Honey, if anybody stole anything from you, they'd get their fingers burned off at the elbows.
Come in.
She opened the door and led me into the living room, sat down. The shades were drawn, and I had a hard time finding the couch.
Oh.
Pardon me, I'm flying blind
You
here.
must have studied Braille.
Well, how do we look at the pictures? With a magic lantern?
I thought maybe you wanted to relax a minute.
Put something in a glass. I'll cool down.
I don't drink. Never keep the stuff around.
Doesn't leave you much of a field. What do you major in?
Cigarettes. Have one?
Yeah.
I haven't got a match.
Just hold on to it. It'll light up.
I think I'd better get the pictures. I'll be right back.
I get lonesome in the dark.
I'll just be a second. Turn on the radio.
Where is it?
By your elbow.
Oh.
That's nice.
Picked it out myself.
We can start with these. If William isn't in this file, I've got lots more. You're not in a hurry, are you?
Not a bit.
Good. This might run into overtime.
We will return you to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. Saddle up the sofa and ride off to adventure with CBS Radio every Saturday night. That's when most of these same stations bring you the Gene Autry Show and Bill Boyd as Hopalong Cassidy. Rustlers don't stand a chance. Crooks of the range go down under fire when those two riders for justice, Gene Autry and Hopalong Cassidy, empty their holsters. Enjoy their latest adventures tonight on CBS Radio. Now with our star, Edmund O'Brien, we bring you the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Virginia Carter wasn't worried about working late. There was only one trouble with the job. It was tough keeping my mind on two things at once. It was like trying to read a mail order catalog in front of a blast furnace. She sat close to me and handed me one picture at a time, describing each guy in the photographs. I've seen draft boards with smaller clientele. Several times she stopped and looked at one of the pictures, smiled, and passed the guy to me. I was going to mention an old snapshot I had of myself when she tapped one of the collection with a polished fingernail.
William Baskerville. Here he is.
Figured to be sooner or later. How long ago was this taken?
Well, I couldn't say exactly, but I'd guess about 6 years.
You should keep a file.
William was a nice guy, had money. Showed me a good time.
What else do you know about him?
He has a brother with a checking account at Fort Knox.
William have any unusual habits?
A few. They wouldn't help you find him.
Well...
Oh, I remember something. He used to play the saxophone.
Hobby?
No, not exactly. He played around town with several small bands. He used to pick me up after work, and we'd go to a dive someplace, and he'd sit in. He loved it. He was a nut on jazz.
You make money at it?
I guess so. Before he went to work for his brother. I don't think his brother liked him playing the sax.
Okay, honey, thanks. I'll stop around again sometime. Take a look at your parlor.
Must have been a nice, soft web.
All right if I take William with me?
Not if you bring a picture back to yourself.
Maybe I'll just bring a camera. You can take it yourself.
Good. That's why I keep the room so dark.
I hated to leave, but my hair was already curly enough. She had given me one lead. William was a musician of sorts, and sometimes he made money at it. I started across the street to catch another cab, and I was halfway there when I heard the car. It was an old trick. You drive by fast, open your door, and if anyone is in the way, he winds up with a face full of automobile. I ducked in a hurry. I picked myself up and thought about chasing him, but he was so far down the street I couldn't even get the license number. Expense account item 4, $3.35. Another cab to local 802 of the Musicians Union. I went in, and a little short guy with a twitch looked up at me from behind a big desk.
Yeah, something I can do for you, Pops?
That twitch?
Yeah. Too much pop.
You know William Baskerville plays sax?
Has he got a card?
He makes money.
Well, if he ain't, he better have.
See if he does. I'm an old friend, and I'd like to get in touch with him. Between twitches, he found what I was looking for. William had just renewed his card. It didn't show a home address, but his mail was being sent to one of the swing joints on 52nd Street. I said thanks and left the little man in the middle of a twitch. Expense account item 5, $3.85, still another cab to the address on 52nd Street.
Want a table, huh?
I'm looking for William Baskerville.
Baskerville?
Plays the sax.
Yeah, you'll have to ask one of the musicians. I don't pay no attention to the music. Tone deaf.
Thanks. Can I bother you for a minute?
No, but you can talk to me. Move and lean on the piano.
Know William Baskerville?
Sure. He blows here.
Where is he?
He's off tonight. He got a phone call and took off. Why?
I want to find him.
He took off. He left rehearsal and just took off.
Was he headed someplace?
Sure. Everybody's headed someplace. You can't go nowhere without heading someplace.
I never quite looked at it that way. What time did he leave?
About 4:30. What do you want Willie for?
I got a message for him.
You a cop?
What makes you think so?
I don't think so. I was just asking. I just thought maybe, not for sure.
What?
What do you mean, what?
How do you feel?
Oh, the end. Sometime when I got the patience, I'll tell you all about it, but don't bug me now, though.
Here's 5. Come down and tell me where William Baskerville lives.
I'll take the 5, but I'm staying right where I am. I like you.
I may cry.
You're putting me on now.
You've got my 5.
5? Oh, yeah. What did it buy you?
An address.
Crazy.
I want William Baskerville.
Okay, I can't make this much longer anyway. 69 East 12th Street.
Thanks.
Solid.
Expense account item 6, cab number 4, 75 cents to the home of Brother Baskerville. I climbed the stairs of a beat-up building and stopped at a door on the 3rd floor. According to the landlord, Brother Baskerville's room was on the other side. I tried my knuckles again and put my ear to the door. I couldn't figure it out at first. It was a strange sound, the light scraping like a rope over wood. I tried the door. I'd been right on both counts. It was rope and it was rubbing on wood. Because Brother Baskerville was making the sound effects, but he was doing it the hard way. He was on one end of the rope, hanging by his neck. He was turning slowly like a weather vane in a soft breeze. A chair was tipped over at his feet, and there was a phone on a table. I crossed to it and was about to call Lieutenant Brenner's when I looked at the dead man again, and my stomach jumped up and kicked my mind into high gear. I walked back to him and picked up the chair. What I saw threw the suicide theory right out of the window. If he had used the chair to stand on, he would have still needed a ladder just to tie the rope to the rafters. I've seen a couple of guys that hang themselves, but never one that jumped 4 feet in the air to do it. I shoved the chair under him just to make sure. He cleared it by a good foot. Hello?
Hello, William?
He's tied up right now.
Who is this? Hello, who is this?
Sometimes you get lucky. A guy would have to be congenitally deaf to Miss Virginia Carter's lovely voice. She'd been lying when she told me she didn't know where William lived, and I just have a natural aversion to lying women, especially when they're mixed up in a murder. You guessed it. Expense account item 7, cab fare, $1.55 back to Greenwich in Virginia Carter's darkroom.
Well, Mr. Dollar, did you bring your camera?
We'll play spin the bottle some other time. How'd you know my name?
Why, you gave it to me this afternoon.
You're a bad liar. I'm coming in.
Oh, now, wait a minute. I'm expecting someone.
If it's who I think it is, you better hide all the rope in the house. Now move it.
Oh,
You heard from Collins yet?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Only 2 people have lied to me today, you and Collins. You told me you didn't know where William lived, and you called him 10 minutes ago. Collins said he saw William standing in the garden with a gun, and a musician told me William didn't leave rehearsal until 4:30. I didn't leave the Baskerville home until 4.
Get out of here. I don't know anybody named Collins.
Okay, but Collins just killed William Baskerville.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. He strangled him first and then stood on a chair and hung the body to a rafter.
How do you know it was Collins?
Because he forgot he's a foot taller than most guys. He gave William a boost, but he left him hanging too high.
Wait a minute.
He just left William waiting for
He
oxygen.
didn't say anything about killing William. I want to get out of this mess.
And slow down and tell me everything you know.
Well, I met him with William. William introduced me to him one night. After William went to prison, I started seeing Collins, and he told me that he'd been in some kind of a deal with William. They'd stolen some money, and that was why William went to prison. He went up and was supposed to split with Collins when he got out.
So William came back and wanted his share, and Collins killed him, huh?
I didn't know he was going to kill him. He forged some kind of a letter so that it would look like it came from Martin.
That's where the letter figured. He was going to kill Carl Baskerville and blame it on William.
He didn't say anything about killing anybody.
He killed him, then stole the letter. Looked like William had killed him and taken the letter to hide the motive.
Listen, Mr. Dollar.
Collins must have come in through the kitchen and started shooting. She went down like a diver with a bends and died on her face. He was trying for me when I jumped to one side and knocked over the only light burning in the room. He came close, but the flash of his gun gave him away, and I threw enough lead to fill a sink. Collins stumbled back into the kitchen, but he was dragging. I heard him drop, and I moved in after him. The moonlight slanted down through one of the windows and splashed out on the hard floor. He was lying in it, on his back, like he wanted to get that far anyway. You'd better give it up, Collins.
Forget it. No reason to kill you now.
Before you close your eyes, tell me something.
All right. It won't take too long.
Why didn't you go out and get William yourself? Why wait until I found him?
Couldn't take the chance. I knew the old man would have somebody. Start looking sooner or later. I killed him in the garden because I knew you'd make a good witness. Probably go looking for Virginia after he told you about her.
You called her and told her to tell me everything she knew.
That's right. Wanted you to find him so it looked like a suicide.
You nearly got away with it. You just forgot how tall you were when you hanged William. You tried to run me down?
No. Just wanted to scare you. Make you think it was William.
I'll call an ambulance.
No. I got three of them. Should be raining now. Too nice a night to die.
Yeah, not a cloud in the sky. It's a beautiful night.
Yeah. Well, I can't use it. But I'll give it to you.
I called Brenner's, and he came over with his boys and cleaned it up. Virginia, the girl with the rogues gallery, was dead, and Collins wasn't long catching up. It was pretty simple. Collins and young Baskerville had taken $100,000 from the brothers' company, and William was caught. He did 6 years, knowing that when he got out, there would be $50,000 waiting. In the meantime, Collins had his girl, and enough time to think that $100,000 was better if it wasn't split in the middle. Collins framed William with a letter and then started killing. Expense account item 8, $23.45 dinner and incidentals covering the rest of the night up till the bars close. Expense account item 9, $10, a massage and steam bath. Item 10, another cab to Grand Central, 65 cents. Item 11, $38.55 train fare and incidentals back to Hartford. Expense account total, $137.27. Comments? Murder isn't so bad. A ride in any New York cab makes a killing look like a Sunday school taffy pull. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and was written by Blake Edwards with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen starring in the Paramount Pictures Technicolor production, Silver City. Featured in tonight's cast were Stacey Harris, Bill Boucher, Howard McNear, Sidney Miller, and Virginia Gregg. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is transcribed in Hollywood by Jaime Del Valle.
This is Dan Cumberly inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. This is Edmund O'Brien again. I'd like to speak to you for a moment about one of the most important duties of American citizens. Today, every American has an opportunity to share in our common defense effort. And right now, this opportunity has become a duty for all of us. The armed forces of the United States need blood, our blood. The Korean campaign has gravely depleted the supply on hand, and this must be replenished if we are to afford our servicemen the protection they are giving us. No matter what your age, sex, or station in life, you can contribute to American defense by donating a pint of your blood to the men of your Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines. Call your local blood donor center or Red Cross chapter today for an appointment. Remember, your donation of blood may save the life of a wounded serviceman. Give your blood today to save a life tomorrow.
Archer's grandmothers are due to arrive in force to add complications to the already busy existence of America's favorite teenager. This invasion of grandmothers is scheduled for tomorrow evening when you meet Corliss Archer on most of these same CBS radio stations. Listen for the family fun with Corliss and all her friends tomorrow night. Stay tuned now for the Vaughn Monroe Show, which follows immediately over most of these same stations. And remember, True Actions fans, never miss a case with Gangbusters Saturday night on the CBS Radio Network.